This is Unfilter, episode 243 for July 5th, 2017.
And I'll tell you that. Think about it. It is unbelievably alarming that this president is so easily played. He's so easily played by a cable news host. Now, what is that saying to our allies? What is that saying to our enemies? That this president is so easily played.
Happy birthday, America. Hope you had a good one because, man, we have some gifts to unwrap for you. This is Unfiltered, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly show about the news.
It's pronounced GIF.
Oh, I thought it was GIF. Sorry. All that news that you shouldn't be watching. I'm Chase. Running the board today is our intern, Chris.
Hey, buddy.
Chris.
Good to be here.
Buddy?
You know, this is my first time on air, and I'm really excited, buddy.
You know what? I figure you'd be a natural. Just throw you right on the show.
Yeah, I know I wouldn't be here if I wasn't your friend and if your father wasn't well connected to the podcasting space, but I really appreciate you having me here on the Unfiltered program.
I didn't know that you're related to Adam. That's great. The Podfather.
Yeah. No, that's you.
I'm the Podfather.
Yeah, you're related.
No, I'm
no, maybe it's
myself.
me. I'm not sure what's happening.
I'm just going to drink out of the Star Trek mug.
So that is a great mug, by the way. I've had that one for years. Yeah, we have a great episode coming up.
Yes, we do.
243 of your Unfiltered program. The Russia stuff is sort of just touching on some stuff, keeping some plates spinning on keeping you updated.
What Russia stuff? There's no connection.
There's something, I don't know, there's no meddling. But really, this week, we're going to take a moment and talk about the full-on media meltdown. The topics come up on this show several times about Trump's tweets. Now, instead of covering it from the perspective of being totally distracted by it, we're going to cover it from a different angle. So we have our own take on that, plus interesting things developing in Nevada, and now that they've legalized the cannabis plant, and then later on, towards the end, a packed overtime with tons of extra stuff. But Mr. Chase.
Yes, Chris.
You know where we have to start. We got to start with our cyber.
I always like the cyber ASL.
Yeah, and so we've been covering for a little bit now. We've been covering the global malware attack, the ransomware attack. There's nothing really totally new developing on there. There has been a what do you call it when you get a warrant? That would be the U.S. term, and then you go into an office it's like a raid, but it's like a raid and
you're exercising a search warrant.
Yeah, the Ukraine government did that to it for an institution. So there's not other than that, there's not a lot of developments with the Petya ransomware, but there is Elsa ransomware, which is in the new docs that have been leaked by Vault 7.
Oh.
WikiLeaks continues to reveal more of the alleged tools used by the CIA with the latest batch of documents showing how the U.S. intelligence agency collects data from PC users. For more details on this, let's go live now to RT's Colm McGlinchey. Hi there, Colm. What has been revealed about this particular malware? What is the story here?
Okay, well, what they released today is known as ELSA. It's the latest in a series of leaks from WikiLeaks they allege came from within the CIA, known as Vault 7. Now, ELSA, according to the documents that were released today, it allows the CIA to track the geolocation of the device, not by its GPS, but instead by its proximity to Wi-Fi access points. Now, this all came out today, and whereas the WikiLeaks have detailed that this, they claim in the documents it shows that it's any device running a Microsoft Windows device, even if the device doesn't have, even if it's not connected to the internet at the time, once it's connected, once it has Wi-Fi enabled, they can get the longitude, latitude, and timestamp of where it is based on Wi-Fi access points within its proximity, and then using publicly accessible databases like Google and Microsoft can then store this information, create a timestamp for it to what WikiLeaks have described as a target device's pattern of life.
Now, the other thing that came out was Outlaw Country, which is malware designed for Linux. Linux malware. You have to run it as root, and it doesn't give you access to run it as root, but and doesn't give you access to the box. But the CIA did develop malware tools to also track Linux users and then reroute their network traffic to observation servers.
Oh.
And it's funny because it seems like to me that all it really did is it loaded a kernel module into the Linux kernel that upon every boot, it would modify your firewall IP tables rule to send a copy of all your traffic somewhere.
Oh.
Now, what's interesting about that is it would seem to me that if you did an IP tables list rules, you would have seen it.
Right. It would have been there.
Unless the kernel module hit itself. Anyways, you had to install it as root, which also would be tricky. But it does otherwise. So during the Snowden leaks, there's nothing really targeted directly at Linux. Not a lot of stuff about Linux in the Snowden leaks. But now in the Vault 7 leaks, we're seeing stuff targeted towards Linux.
Interesting.
While we're talking RT, let's keep talking about Russia for a little bit. There was an awkward exchange recently.
Sir, I'm sorry, tell me your name.
Now, this is, she used to work for Fox News, but
okay.
she got promoted, I guess, as the one of the State Department's spokesholes. And, it's interesting. Outside the U.S. media, the claims about Assad having access to chemical weapons is pretty resoundingly questioned, and the main reason behind that is there was big news, and we covered it, I believe. I can't remember anymore. In 2014, 13, I can't remember anymore, but the Obama administration announced a partnership with Russia to acquire all of Assad's chemical weapons and then do an audit, and the State Department signed off on that audit that ascribed that we had collected, or Russia had collected, all of Assad's chemical weapons. So now later on, when there has been reports of chemical weapons, a lot of times it's been tied to areas where rebels are holding and likely creating crude chemical weapons. And sometimes chemical weapons are getting distributed as a result of a bombing where things go up in the air, or sometimes it's the rebels themselves. There's nothing been really nailed down to the Assad regime except for what the White House claims.
Right.
So now the press is asking, what is your proof? Hell, if she doesn't just have a shit face when she realizes who she's just called on. Right now, she's all smiles, she's all happy, and then she realizes the trouble that she has just invited herself. Watch her expression change.
She didn't call on what's his name from the AP, right?
No, no. Unfortunately, I haven't heard from Matt for ages.
Yeah, where's Matt? Is he on vacation?
No, she accidentally calls on a guy from RT, and watch her face if she doesn't just immediately regret it.
Oh,
boy.
Caleb with RT.
Oh, right, Caleb.
And that's the shit face right there. You see that? You see that?
And she's going to the tab, the RT section of her binder.
So,
that's a total oh shit face.
this recent statement from the White House alleging that the Syrian government was planning an upcoming chemical attack.
Quick update, Steve in the chat room tells us it was September 2013 where they did that, and links the information there in the chat room.
Are you concerned that could have created an opening for terrorist groups to carry out a chemical attack?
No.
You're not concerned, even though al-Nusra, al-Qaeda groups have been using chemical weapons in Syria? That's documented?
No. Next question on Syria.
Well, I mean, they could carry out a chemical attack, and then with the White House saying, oh, Assad was going to do it, that would create a cover for them to do such a thing.
Do I have to do this again? We know that Assad has used chemical weapons on his own people. And he's done that repeatedly,
well, including the United States convinced the world that
including women and children.
Oh shit, the children chase.
Women and children.
And we have all seen that. We have all seen the video, and there is no debate.
It seems sexist when the United States government does that over and over again. Why not men?
About that. Okay.
So
I'm going
to Assad give up his chemical weapons in 2013?
Oh, there it is.
Didn't that happen?
No.
That didn't happen, so the OPCW
let's go over to you.
Thank you.
And then she moves on, and she's pissed. It is, and it's a legitimate question because she never cites any evidence, but they keep rattling that.
Well, he would ask, where's your source? And she's like, yeah, we'll get that to you after the meeting, and then that never happens.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
There is an event, speaking of Russia, that's about to happen, and I kind of want to hear your thoughts about this, dude.
After all the fuss over the Trump administration's possible links to the Kremlin, the US and Russian presidents will finally come face to face. The two are to meet at the G20 summit in Hamburg this Friday. RT's Kate Partridge has more.
Well, this year's G20 summit promises to be very interesting indeed. The White House and the Kremlin have both confirmed that Presidents Trump and Putin will meet on the sidelines, though, after 6 months of Russia and Trump dominating the headlines and Moscow admitting that relations between the countries are at zero. However, it's much anticipated by other people that this will be the highlight of the entire summit. Well, what is it that they're going to be talking about? Well, first of all, there's Ukraine, and secondly, there's Syria, and that promises to be very thorny indeed after the White House came out with the unfounded allegation and indeed prediction that President Assad would use another chemical attack in Syria.
So what do you think, Chase? Because CNN's been asking, why don't they talk about the 2016 election? Why don't they talk about the 2016 election? I gotta ask you, though. You put Donald Trump in a room off the sidelines with Vladimir Putin. There's only a couple of people in that room next to them, and Trump, he could say whatever he wants.
And that's the ultimate thing, right? It's going to get spun one way or the other, and without actually seeing a full account of the meeting and maybe having an independent source in there, maybe not just a Russian photographer, but and that's a callback to the White House thing. But man, I think this is going to be definitely spun, obviously, by the Trump administration. The meeting, it's going to be
because they're not going to have any reporters in there, so they can say whatever they want.
Right, we lay down. But
are you worried
Syria?
Are you worried at all?
Worried?
Well,
no.
I mean, what if he says some stuff in there about this Trump-Russia stuff is bullshit and blah, blah, blah? I mean,
it's very hard right now to believe either side, right?
I know, but what do you think he could say to Putin? I mean, there's all kinds of things like... To me, I'm
How you
wondering,
doing, buddy? Hey, it's nice to see you.
I'm wondering what he's going to say. He's going to have to say something about all of the media's attention around the Trump story and Russia connection. Like they're going to talk about that.
Of course they're going to talk about it, but I mean, what can you say?
I don't know.
I mean, first off, if you believe Putin...
They'd probably laugh about it together.
I mean, first off, if you believe Putin says Russia didn't do anything, right? Well, I don't know what you're talking about. We didn't do anything.
Or if you believe the President of the United States.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then there's certain parties within the organization, Trump's organization and cabinet, that have said, Russia did, definitely. And actually, Trump has said that too, because he's like, well, why didn't Obama do anything about it if he did do anything? So it's very weird.
Don't confuse interference with state elections with collusion between the Trump campaign, because that's the problem we keep doing.
Oh, that's true. You're right.
They're two separate issues.
You're absolutely right.
So the whole collusion story between the upper levels of Trump, he could go, let's say Rance Priebus, you really think, or
Flynn?
No, what's the other guy that's always a mess? We stopped talking about Brandon.
Steve Bannon.
Steve Bannon. Bannon. Yeah. Steve Bannon. You think either one of those sons of bitches or Kelly Conway are working with the Russians? Give me a break.
No,
Donald Trump's not working with the. I mean, maybe he's getting money from a bank, but he's not working with the Russians.
It feels like there's definitely either a business relationship going on, with the Trump empire, if you will. Especially, I do believe that the whole golf course situation and fundings and things like that.
I'll tell you what, though. It is definitely at this point, 7 months in, 8 months in of them digging, it is much easier at this point to draw straight lines between the Clinton Foundation and special interests in Russia and in Ukraine than it is to draw straight lines between Donald Trump and Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there aren't lines to be drawn, but I'm saying at this point in time, it is more provable to draw influence lines between the Clinton Foundation and Putin's administration than it is to draw lines between Trump and the Putin administration.
I think the conversation is probably going to start out, though, with Trump talking to Putin about Syria. I think,
that would be the most productive thing.
I think it would be. And if it's something that, and here's the problem, I think, that our president, and, kind of leading back to the opening clip with, the whole Mika situation, and I know we'll talk about it later, is he's so engrossed in that social scene right now with the media and this constant back and forth battle that instead of him taking this opportunity, here he is sitting down with a leader of Russia, be productive and not focus in on the small belittling things that don't really mean a whole lot.
You know what strikes me about Putin? Also crazy image conscious.
Oh, totally.
They just go about it a different way, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the two of them are, in some ways, a lot alike in that regard. They're both crazy image conscious.
Yeah,
totally. There's one story in regards to Russia coverage and how the media is covering Russia, quote unquote, the media. And this is the one that the chat room is the most interested in this week. There was one more leak from Project Veritas right before we went on air. And I just figured we'd play a bit of it. The Project Veritas, again, going back, we covered them last week. In the past, they're the people that release this selectively.
I'm ready for the hate mail and messages, by the way, so feel free. Send them my way. It's okay.
We'll get to that.
That's right.
But anyway, so this just came out today, and it's probably, in some regards, the most embarrassing out of all of the leaks yet.
All right.
I mean, granted, anything I've said to you, I would defend on the record. I don't think I've said anything wrong.
Hi, I'm James O'Keefe with Project Veritas. Jimmy Carr is an associate producer with CNN's morning show, New Day.
So this is the guy that's been hosting all of these releases. And by the way, New Day is my #1 hated show on CNN. So this is a
You mean you don't like Fox and Friends?
No, I mean just on CNN. Like, I cannot stand. I cannot stand the 5 at 5 or whatever they call it, and Fox and Friends, man. And I have to watch them for this damn show, and they all drive me crazy. So to see this program taken down a notch really made me happy. But anyways,
to these people.
I had a moment of panic because on Sunday night, I met them on a Friday. On Sunday night, this anti-CNN advocacy guy released a bunch of tapes of him. Okay, so the Nothing Burger thing came from a guy who secretly recorded his conversations with a CNN employee.
What is the irony level right now?
Super high.
Who did that?
Just this right-wing advocate.
Hitler youth?
Can you believe this? Can you now? She is in cahoots with the guy that released the audio. So
Wait,
she's
Hitler. Really?
She's like playing him. She's full on playing him right now because she's recording him and she's working with Project Veritas.
Right.
She probably knows the guy that did it, and so she's essentially kind of stroking his ego and prompting him. Like, I'm so one of you, and like she can play the role.
So what's the difference between her prompting that and say the FBI prompting a suspect and wanting to bomb something?
Yeah, like they do with like the people where they supply them,
right, and try to set them up to fail.
I think one of the most that's why I'm playing this kind of in its entirety, because I think one of the most interesting things about this is it shows sort of the tactics that they're using, because it's one of the things that was brought up on the last show is like, how do they get this? How do they get these people to talk about this?
Right.
How they're doing it is they're playing them. They're manipulating them a little bit.
But a guy who hated CNN and was pro-Trump and wanted to expose CNN's lies, and he had met a guy and talked to them about CNN's coverage and recorded it secretly and released it at...
When was this?
It was on Sunday night, Monday morning.
Playing dumb again. When was this? Oh, I had no idea.
And it came out, and we were all going, holy shit, how is this guy so stupid? He's talking to everyone and saying X, Y, and Z about CNN. And I went there and went, well, I talked to a couple of guys at a bar on Friday afternoon, and I said things that we wouldn't normally say. I mean, granted, anything I've said to you, I would defend on the record. I don't think I've said anything wrong. The guy had his phone on in his pocket.
They asked, how did he do it? He says the guy had the phone in his pocket, and the irony level now is it gets even notched up higher. I start to cringe.
But so he was just talking to a guy. No, it was a secret recording. He had his phone voice recording in his pocket, talking to him, talking about, hey, don't you think CNN's coverage is a little ridiculous right now? And this employee said, well, yeah, I think it's over the top, and right now it's kind of bullshit. But I mean, that became the subject of 3 opening monologues on Fox News evening show. And I had the thought of literally,
no wonder I missed it.
I'm not bullshitting you.
No wonder I missed it. As if she never would watch Fox News. She would never watch Fox News.
Oh, no, of course not.
And it shows you how sensitive CNN is to what happens, even though they publicly pretend like it's no big deal. Internally, they're watching all of it.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally.
I literally went, holy shit, I hope those 2 guys that I met weren't trying to fuck with me and record me. I mean, granted, anything I've said to you, I would defend on the record. I don't think I've said anything.
So all he's done so far is just done a recap.
Yeah. Now,
we all recognize
here you go.
He is a clown, that he is hilariously unqualified for this, that he's really bad at this, and that he does not have America's best interests. We recognize he's justified and crazy.
Would it be fair to question the intellect of the American voter?
Oh, no, they're stupid as shit.
So he says the American voter is stupid as shit.
Sorry, Kellyanne Conway?
What's she look like? Is she the one with
She looks like she could do a shovel.
She looks. What about Kellyanne Conway? And he says Kellyanne Conway. He says, well, she looks like she's been hit in the face with a shovel.
She looks like she got hit with a shovel.
Carr also let it slip that he and his coworkers are not exactly fans of their anchor, Chris Cuomo.
This is my favorite part because I hate this guy, dude. This Chris Cuomo.
I know you don't like him at all.
Chris Cuomo is the guy that said that we're not allowed to read WikiLeaks, that is illegal.
I don't have the gravitas, so I also don't have a brother who's the governor. So.
I also don't have a brother who's governor.
Yes, Chris Cuomo is Andrew Cuomo's brother, the governor of New York.
Well, that's the gravitas.
Now listen to how she plays him here. Listen to how she strokes his ego.
I've been an hour and a half listening to you. You're extremely intelligent. You're very well spoken. think you're a far better presenter than Chris Cuomo, just in how you present the issue. I totally disagree with you. I'm not drunk either.
I cannot technically say anything, but I can simply say that there's a lot of us that spend a lot of time in the newsroom criticizing Justice.
There's a lot of us who's basically saying there's a lot of us who criticize Como in the newsroom. Not Como, but Como.
Just the what?
The same points.
Yeah, I just
can't stand that.
We can't stand the guy when he talks. We're like, shut up.
We're like, shut up.
Yeah.
After our video last week, New Day anchor Allison Camerata sent an email to the panelist who she suspected leaked the new audio of the selectively edited video CNN released. She seemed to be expressing some level of anger about the leak.
The email just says, really? That's so, I hate that. It's so passive-aggressive. Really?
What I want to know with this Veritas group, are they doing the same thing with Fox? Are they doing the same thing with all the other outlets? Or are they specifically targeting on CNN?
I don't think so. But I think they're, at the same time, it's not like they're not hidden about their, like, pro-Trump.
Here's the thing, everybody's like, yeah, this needs to get out there. And I agree. But also there are some things that all these news organizations do. And when I say all, maybe that's not a fair thing to do either.
Yeah.
But a lot of them do. They obviously turn their coverage towards Trump or turn their coverage towards against Trump.
Let's change the scale. Yeah. So imagine this is Jupiter Broadcasting,
right? And
somebody gets a. By
the way, it shouldn't matter who's in the office. It should be equal across the board, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, this is. I think this is really. In some ways, I think this is true journalism. But hold on, I'll get back to that. As long as everybody's upfront about their bias.
Right.
But I'll get back to that. So picture yourself a Jupiter Broadcasting situation. You got the Unfilter show, and somebody gets audio of producer Matt saying that, he doesn't like us. He thinks we're, he gripes about us all the time, and that the show the stuff we're reporting on is just bogus. That would be telling. I mean, I think that is a damaging thing.
Right.
But it just shows you that there's a lot of humans that work in this large organization. That's really what it's showing you.
Yeah.
Is there's dissenting opinions inside a large organization.
Right. And I think, I think we need to be very careful. I mean, as people in general. While yes, everybody's loving getting CNN raked over the coals, and it's fun to watch, and it's fun to watch people squirm.
I do really think a big part of this is people want to see CNN's nose bleed just a little bit.
Right. But honestly, I want to see a lot of these organizations' noses bleed, because it really takes a big slap in the face for people who are journalists, who went to journalism school, who dug in the trenches and covered the stupid pet stories to work their way to a point, but not as an entertainer, but based on journalistic value.
Do you think it has had an impact, though? I don't know.
I don't think this has at all.
Well, maybe it's because of Recess. That's got to be it. But the Russian stories are...
Here's the impact that it has. Fox has taken this kind of stuff and used it to
make hay. Yeah,
make hay with it. And then the president... somebody, a fan of it, made an animated GIF. I know we'll probably talk about that.
Let's not go there yet. Hold on a second.
But I'm just saying that kind of stuff fuels things, not necessarily for change, but it fuels it just to increase. But
here's my point, because I think you missed my point. Because I'm just saying, like the volume of Russian reporting has probably dropped to 20% from where it was before this stuff started coming out.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it's maybe because there's a vacation right now in Congress. I don't think
the
it's
recess. Yeah,
I think that's because I think that's why. But I got to tell you, man, like our CNN feed was all Russia, and now Russia. They're still covering Russia, but it's gone from remember that stat we quoted where it was like almost all of their hours were Russia coverage. It's cut way back. Cut way back. So it may have had an impact to some degree because they were just kind of manufacturing stuff constantly.
Like when they. For example, they got rid of it was a producer, I think a reporter, and one other person, from the botch story that they ended up
they fired 3 people in total.
And everybody goes, see, this is CNN. This is what happens.
And they also rerouted the editorial process for Russia's coverage to go through one person.
Right. And any news organization, they have their sets of standards, and they should be followed through.
But CNN's process doesn't affect NBC or CBS.
No.
But they've all, I'm telling you, man, our Russia segment, hold on one sec. So our Russia segment this week was 3 clips, one of which was just from RT, and I don't think I have much back. But if I go to 240, I have okay, right here in this one I have 13 clips, and then a second folder about Russia I have another 19 clips.
Right.
And now this week, I go back to, like I was saying, I have 3 clips, and one of them is RT. So the amount of reporting across all of the networks and across CNN has, it's a dramatic difference.
Let me be clear, okay? I want to be clear here. I understand what Veritas is doing, right? Like, I understand that they are out there to show the hypocrisy of what CNN is doing, and you know what? I support that to a degree. The degree meaning that I would support Veritas that much more if they were equal across all organizations. If they were being the independent watchdog of how Fox is doing it, how RT does it, how MSNBC does it, how CNN does it, that sort of thing, it could be a much more effective light on the process to show, hey, this is not about journalism anymore. This is about ratings. This is about money, and show me the money. If you want to push that picture out there, yeah. If you want to show that picture, let's show the truth of what it is. Right now, they haven't shown me that, and it just feels like just a gotcha piece on CNN, and that's fine. And what they're showing is true.
It's 100% a gotcha.
Yeah,
but it doesn't mean that the content's wrong. It's kind of like when WikiLeaks releases Hillary's emails. It's 100% meant to damage Hillary, but it doesn't also mean that the contents are wrong.
Right, and
so but that's a good point. Like, you still have to consider what's Julian Assange's motivation in releasing these emails.
Right. Is his motivation to get the truth out there, no matter what it was, or to be selective and damage? And actually, he's gone. I think he's gone on the record saying, "Yeah, this is going to bring down Hillary or whatever."
He thinks Clinton's a monster, and I can see why.
Yeah.
Now I want to, but you kind of touched on something there for just a second, and what you were saying is like this kind of very aggressive style reporting does lead to sort of some hostility. And what it sort of evolved into is meme generation on Reddit, which is something normal, but this week it became quite the controversy.
Yes, it did.
Something remarkable I thought happened yesterday. I thought it was remarkable that CNN found the Reddit user who created the GIF of Donald Trump in the wrestling video and where he punches CNN. So the investigative team went back and found the guy who first created this. He took credit for it. And then here comes the remarkable part.
Now let's stop here. The conversation that's really happening here, I think to some degree, is how the president is allowed and should communicate. So both two different things.
Yeah.
Allowed to, and how he should communicate with the public. And that's the meta conversation, and each individual case is the media's take on it. Now, you really have to parse the words that are about to come out of this woman's mouth. This is the woman that emailed really back, passively aggressively. They threatened to dox this Reddit user. They already put his username out there, which is basically good enough. But they essentially got an agreement with him that if he ever made another video like this again, they would dox him completely. Now, so listen to her words, because that's actually what
I
she's
read the
telling.
article about it, too, and I was just like, I didn't like that at all.
Yeah, it's in their statement. I have a link to the show notes.
Yeah, I saw that, too. I saw that statement.
He apologized. He apologized.
That's
for
Como,
having
by the way.
done this.
Yeah.
The reason that I think this is so notable, Crystal Liza, is because this is a very full-throated, I think, genuine, honest apology. He has also asked that we not reveal his name or whereabouts, and we at CNN are honoring that because he's apologized, and he thinks that he would then be in danger and at risk if other people knew his name. We get it. We understand that.
So as long as he stays apologized.
So first off, first step, if you're going to create something like that, I don't care who you are. Stand behind it, all right, as a person.
Yeah.
Okay? If you're going to make something like this and hide, okay, and then when you're outed, right, you're like, if someone found out it was you, and you go, please, oh, please, don't out me. Man, I lose respect. Granted,
you know what's
granted,
awkward,
on the other
though?
side, and by the way, on the other side, CNN holding this over his head.
Getting all crazy. The whole media. I mean, I could have done an hour of reaction clips.
Yeah, if you're like, hey, if you don't share the, or if you end up
inciting violence, you're inciting violence.
Yeah.
You're inciting violence.
It's like, come on.
Now, but hold on now.
All right.
So it turns out, I didn't realize this. It came up 2 days ago that CNN actually not sure that's the dude.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Jim, the White House will not say where the president got the video, but a senior White House official said today it was not from Reddit, which is a popular internet messaging board.
I mean, if Trump got it himself, I just don't see Trump as a Reddit user.
I know who. It's one of his social media people pass it along and say, "Hey, look at this Trump."
Yeah. Now I've heard several times that there are younger people who do troll Reddit that do work in a social media group.
The problem is we and other media outlets who have searched can't find any evidence of it existing anywhere but Reddit before the president picked it up. Now, why does that matter? Because if he got it from that source, a whole bunch of new questions about racism, bigotry, and violence come into play.
Now, why does he say that? Why does he say a whole? Okay, let's
say that again. Yeah.
So yeah, okay.
Got it from that source.
That source being Reddit. Okay.
Right.
A whole bunch of new questions about racism, bigotry, and violence come into play.
Now, why is that? So if he got it from Reddit, those questions come into play.
I don't see the connection. I'm having a hard time because why would that matter?
So what seems to happen time and time again, over and over again. I mean, even going back to Ken Bone, but I mean, it seems to always happen is the media will or look at what was her name? Reality.
Reality Winner.
Yeah. They will parse your social media feeds and your Reddit history. Anytime you went on Reddit drunk and upvoted a topless picture of somebody or a meme that is slightly offensive, anytime you left a comment on a relationship advice thread, they go through and they parse all of this and they look for the really bad stuff. Like if you were in some sort of IMA and you said you were going to donate $10,000 to go save the whales, that's the post they're going to skip.
Right.
But the one where you went on Reddit at 2 a.m. when you shouldn't have, that's the one that they decide to highlight. And so I'm not trying to defend this person. I haven't gone and looked at his Reddit history. I just pointed out as a trend that we notice, and I don't mention this. I'm not defending this individual. I'm not even talking about this particular instance. This is just a trend that I seem to have noticed throughout the show for about 242 weeks so far. And it's kind of disturbing because the media uses social media in a perverse way to prove a point. And when they want to hide the retweets, they'll blur them out. But when they want to show the retweets, they'll show them. When it's an ISIS account that has 2 followers, they'll show the tweet. And if it's an ISIS account that has been showing images and it's only been just created in the last couple of days and it's obviously a fake account, they'll blur out the creation date. They've been using social media in perverse ways, but now that they're starting to wrap their heads around Reddit, it's really taking a dark turn. And some of the most recent people in the news that are, in their 30s or younger have really gotten eviscerated because of their social media history.
Before the president picked it up. Now, why does that matter? Because if he got it from that source, a whole bunch of new questions about racism, bigotry, and violence come into play. The video shared by President Trump to his 33 million personal Twitter followers and then to 19 million more on his presidential account was apparently first posted by a Reddit user who goes by this online name.
Han Asshole Solo or something like that.
Yeah.
And who has also laid claim to it. That user of Reddit's online message board reacted enthusiastically. Wow, I never expected my meme to be retweeted by the God Emperor himself.
Now, the God Emperor is a common term that's used in R. Donald. It's sort of like their nickname for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
It's cute. It's cute. Yeah. It's real cute.
And by the way, I think there's 2 separate things to talk about. Obviously, the creation of this and how it perpetrated, and then also the president alone tweeting it out and putting it out.
Yeah, I agree.
Honored. But others are worried, including the Anti-Defamation League, which surveyed the user's post and found a consistent record of racism, anti-Semitism, and bigotry.
Dude, he's screwed.
This individual traffics in online hatred and at times violent rhetoric.
So this is the part where we do the slandering.
And the ADL seems to call out the president, saying, when those on the fringes of society feel their messaging is getting mainstream attention, that should raise alarms.
Screw you, populace.
The fake media is trying to silence us, but we will not let them. Because the people know the truth. The fake media tried to stop us from going to the White House, but I'm president and they're not.
It all comes as the president is raging away at the media,
with a fiery speech and a Twitter attack on
raging away
2 MSNBC hosts that was so coarse, members of his own party were stunned.
We'll get to that in a second. So let's break down both pieces here. So you have the media essentially doxing this guy, but then CNN says they're actually not sure because it's when you compare what Donald Trump shared and what the Redditor shared, they are not the same thing. They have different audience vocals and in totally different audio tracks, and I guess there's a slight cut that's different. So I have obviously we don't know, but I do have a theory that seems to fit the pieces of information we have available to us.
Okay.
So something we do know, and you just said it a second ago, is Trump has like a team of people that are watching Twitter and Reddit. It's actually not uncommon. This is something that just the White House does.
Probably even downloading our show. Hi, White House, by the way.
This is something that the White House has done since Barry's been in office.
Yeah.
It's not totally uncommon.
Oh, no, it's not out of the realm.
But each president staffs it with their own people.
Yep.
And one thing that seems to have come up again and again is there are people in that team that do seem to troll our Donald and other places and have passed things on to Trump. And this is not the first time he's reposted something from that source.
Right.
And it's come back in analysis when people have been questioning. It's come back that it was this social media team. So here's my theory.
Okay.
Social media team is tasked to find these kinds of things for Donald Trump. They modified it to amp it up. They stole this guy's work, essentially.
I believe that. I definitely believe that. I don't think he thought that the president would get this at all.
And it's not the same thing that he posted.
No,
so they took it and
it.
altered it, amped it up. They sweetened the audio, gave more crowd noise and things like that, and then passed it along to Donald to post it.
Right.
And then he posts it.
Yeah.
And he then later on posted from the POTUS account. And the reason why I think that happened is because it's this team that did the work. It's White House staff that essentially generated the video.
Yeah.
He might not even know the source. It's just my team gave me this great video.
Yeah. Yep.
Look at this great meme. They're tasked to find great memes, right? Memes. And so look at this great meme we found, Donald. We've done so good for you.
So the President of the United States of America tweets this out. What does that... I mean, he's continuing, obviously, his feelings and attack on CNN and, calling them fake
You know what's
news,
funny
fake CNN.
is...
But I don't know how we even attempt to get better at people and reporting with this.
You know where the line was crossed for me? Is that when he did it from the POTUS account.
Oh, yeah.
For me, like when he does it from the @real Donald Trump account, I'm like, oh yeah, that's typical Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But when he does it from the POTUS account, I'm like, shit, that brother's not not classy, brother.
Whether or not people realize it or not, other countries obviously pay attention to us. Our immediate neighbors, our European neighbors, everybody does. And say you're a citizen of Belgium, right? And you have these thoughts and ideas of what the United States is all about. You don't know a lot because you just know what you know, and then this happens, a tweet showing the President of the United States in a meme, punching down a wrestler. I mean, it's all about optics. And I part of me, I understand why he's upset, right? I understand that part. Totally understand it. But at the same time, you're the President of the United States of America. You don't need to mess around with that. You don't. You're in for the next 4 years. You're good to go, buddy. Why mess with it?
I completely agree.
And that's where my mind is having a disconnect. I mean, I understand the why of why he did it, but there are things that you and I we have decisions about on a daily basis.
How about a compromise?
Yeah.
I got a compromise for you.
Yeah.
If this is how Hillary would do it, because Hillary would never be doing that, but I tell you what she would do is she would have some sort of super sophisticated social media team.
You're probably right. Yeah.
And they would do all the counterattacking.
Yeah.
He just needs to do that. Those people in the social media division, they need to just get popular accounts, buy off a few celebrities, and have them start firing back and let Donald Trump pretend like it's above him, and he can sit back and behind the scenes orchestrate the whole thing so that way he gets his narcissistic outlet.
Right.
It seems like the perfect compromise.
And I think part of the danger here is people see these things, right? And it causes the rift that is already there between Americans and a lot of people around the world, that wedge to get larger.
I think, yeah.
And
I suppose. I think it does rally the base a bit, and then it does make people on the other side freak out.
Well, it's not even just the base. It's to question whether or not we're getting the truth from anything anymore. And meanwhile, we have a president saying, well, only coming from me is the only truth.
I want to talk
that's
about
very dangerous, no matter who it is.
Let's talk about this more when we get to the Mika thing. So I want to just take a second here and say we're not trying to get caught up in the distraction that is the Twitter feed.
Right.
What we're trying to do is honestly document something that's happening that I don't think has ever occurred in any other presidency to this degree. And this is actually very fundamental to think how things are going to play out long-term politically for Donald Trump. So that's why we are covering this. There is historical significance here. And there is another angle to the story just really quickly. That whole, we won't tell as long as you remain sorry, I think we should just focus in on that for a second.
Accusations of blackmail are being levelled at CNN after it tracked down the person behind the Donald Trump wrestling clip, which the president tweeted a few days ago. The channel is threatening to reveal his identity if he makes another video like the Trump one. RT's Murad Gazdiev has more on this story.
So, this guy makes a humorous little video, and then it blows up. Someone edited it. Donald Trump found it and posted it on his Twitter feed. It got millions of views, hundreds of thousands of likes, and many people had a laugh. CNN did not like being laughed at, not one bit. They launched a manhunt for the original creator of the video. What they did is doxing. It is digging up private information on someone or something and then publishing it. It can be used for law enforcement, for business extortion.
Can I stop it there for a minute?
Yeah, actually, I'm good with it.
So first off, his stuff, it didn't need to be dug up. His profile data was there and the things that he supported on his Reddit account. So it's not like digging it up. It was.
What about the high ground, though?
Yeah,
I mean, you're saying Donald Trump should take the high ground. Shouldn't CNN also take some high ground here?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not going to let him off the book on this either. I think the proper way of doing it is, it's like, we found out that you're the one who made this, okay? We understand. Can you tell us a little bit why you made it? I would be more investigative. I'd be like, what's your feeling behind this? Why are you doing this? Why do you feel this way?
Yeah.
I mean, they could have took this moment and instead of putting it in this way, saying, hey, if you do this again... What news? That is not how you earn a reputation as a news organization. No, I think what you do is you talk to the individual. You say, "Hey, would you be willing to come on camera and
do an interview
and talk to us?
That's
Why
what
do you
I was
feel
thinking.
This way? Why do you feel this way?"
That's exactly my thought. Is do an expose, and you could make a lot of hay out of that.
And not just
this is how a Trump supporter thinks,
and not just an expose. It's just this guy is 15, right? 16-year-old kid, right? Why do you feel this way? I mean, what's going on, man? Talk to us. Talk to us Americans and let us know why you are feeling this way. But instead, CNN has picked to do a low road on this. And I that's terrible. Terrible.
It is kind of sad for that kid. And if it is true, and maybe it's not true, but if it is true that it's not exactly his video, that's also even worse to some degree.
Yeah, and if you go and look at his history, and this kid, if it's either he's doing it to show affection and try to be a part of the in crowd.
Yeah, that's like a culture there on the Donald.
Yeah, it's definitely a culture. Or he really does feel this way. Either way, there's a story.
My 8-year-old kid, I've never once talked to him about Donald Trump, and he hates Donald Trump. My 8-year-old kid. I don't know why.
School?
He wanted to come. He actually, I'm not joking, asked me today, because he was here earlier today. Yeah. He asked me if he could come on mic and tell the audience how much he hates Donald Trump. And I'm like, well, why do you hate him? He's like, I don't know. But I hate him. And this kid, he's 16 years old. I know I'm sound like I'm being demeaning, but from where I sit, 8 and 16 are not that far apart in some ways. And but he loves Donald Trump. So what's going on?
Or does he?
Well, who knows? Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And does my kid really hate Donald Trump?
Right. You're right. And I think that is the underlying a lot of issue in a lot of ways on both sides, where we're not just sitting down and having a conversation. And to be fair, I look at the chat, I see the comments, and people definitely have a strong distrust and a strong hate towards certain media factions. And then all of a sudden you start seeing people saying, I'm not going to watch them anymore. And I think...
Absolutely. Or I'm just not going to believe anything they say.
And all I got to say is be very careful down that thought process. Because when you start shutting yourself off, even off of outlets of things that you hate, you start becoming more and more inside that bubble.
Man, I could not agree more with you right now.
You got to be careful.
Yeah.
And that's why I personally, I will acknowledge those hate comments. I will look at RT. I will look at Fox. I will look at CNN, Headline News, MSNBC, all of them. because that's how you become a more informed individual.
I agree, and I think that's it's been something that's really bared out to me as I watch.
It's hard.
As I watch Fox and RT, and I watch Scott Pelley, and I watch ABC News, which it's interesting because they're all from a different perspective. You could put RT in there. I was watching a few clips from Al Jazeera today, and you put it all in the mix, and you really kind of can see different perspectives on a story that are very revealing. And I think what we're getting to is a point in time where the consumers of news, and news is really becoming a product. There's so many interesting integrations now with iOS around news and Google News, and Google just had a big refresh to their news that includes fact checking. News is really becoming a product that people consume. And it's more important than ever that you evaluate each story individually on its own merits. And that's something we definitely try to do here on the show. And that's, I think, one of the reasons I'm super proud that we're listener supported, because we don't come with any particular take. And if we get it wrong, we'll come back and try to correct it. And I think that is probably long-term going to be where people find themselves getting the most reliable news, because they're going to otherwise be just constantly questioning every single thing they hear.
And I also understand that, people have limited time with their lives, wives, kids, jobs, things like that. And, they feel like they have to hone in on a place that they can trust on. All I got to say is, and I hope a lot of people do this, is no matter if you're a Fox person, if you're a Trump supporter, if you're a Trump hater, whatever the case may be,
you're a Rachel guy, or you're a
just try, really, really try. And honestly, it's a practice.
Yeah,
you got
to challenge yourself constantly.
I personally practice myself. To learn and get.
You know what
sources.
I do? You know what I do is I also follow people on Twitter that I find have the exact opposite opinion of me on stuff.
Oh yeah. I do it too.
Yeah.
It's
all right. So before we get off the whole Twitter thing and the responses to this, the meltdown really occurred this week when Donald Trump responded to some things that were said on Morning Joe. And to have the conversation fully, I'm going to play some clips to give us context. This first one is from Sean Hannity's program, and it is a clip of Joe Scarborough attacking Donald Trump. Now, I'm playing this to sort of set up what was said on air before Donald Trump did this latest barrage, just to have some context of the language that's being used here.
Donald Trump, again, being a schmuck. He looked like a thug. He looked like a goon. You look at the handshake. You look at this. Just what a thug! What an embarrassment! Look, he's mauling him like an idiot. Like an absolute. It's just what an embarrassment to the United States. This is so unbalanced. This is so. He is not well. He's Vladimir Putin's hostage. It would be like somebody pooping their pants and then people looking at it and saying, "Oh, that's modern art." Don't you understand? There's no attempt to hide the fact that Donald Trump is breaking every promise he made. The Republican fools that are suggesting, and fools on talk radio and fools blogging suggesting that's just a request, you seriously embarrass yourself, because you have been living in your mother's basement, eating Cheetos and blogging.
Now, so I play that just to, again, set the context of the tone of the coverage. Yeah. And then there were some comments that really pushed things over the edge. They were actually from Mika herself, and I have kind of a cut of that here. Oh, so they were coming after him. I guess this is a good time to mention this too.
Yeah.
They were coming after him, giving him a hard time because he had fake covers of himself on the Time magazine at his golf clubs, and they just thought that was hilarious. I have more coverage of that in the overtime, though. We'll move forward.
Nothing makes a man feel better than making a fake cover of a magazine about himself, lying every day and destroying the country.
Nothing makes a man feel better.
Oh, well, he's covering his hands here because they're teensy.
And that was the moment in which Trump decided to go to Twitter. And you have to put all this in context. This is in some ways, it's been like a year in the making, this feud. I've been watching this interesting tone because when Trump was the candidate, he was actually very buddy-buddy with Morning Joe.
On June 29th, President Trump escalated once again his feud with Morning Joe, tweeting that they were both crazy and psycho, and then really hammering Mika Brzezinski for allegedly having a low IQ and for having a facelift from which she was bleeding when they desperately showed up at Mar-a-Lago around New Year's Eve trying to socialize with the president, and of course he said no. This really sort of ramps up the intensity on a feud that has been going on for more than a year now at this point.
Is that necessary?
Look, I think what's necessary is to push back against unnecessary attacks on the president.
And it really represents a dramatic switch from the beginning of the presidential campaign. You have to go back to the middle of 2015 when Trump was a frequent guest on the Morning Joe program. He and Scarborough have known each other for a long time. They seem to have at least a very friendly on-air rapport. Some reports said that they were too cozy off camera and that it was becoming uncomfortable for NBC. But whatever the case was, it really changed dramatically, though, beginning in February of 2016 when Trump made that infamous appearance on CNN in which he declined to strongly disavow the support of David Duke and the Ku Klux Klan.
That's disqualifying right there. It's breathtaking. That is disqualifying right there.
At one point, the relationship deteriorated so badly that in August of 2016, Donald Trump basically picked up on a Page 6 rumor at the time and talked about the romantic relationship between Scarborough and Brzezinski. He called Brzezinski Joe's longtime girlfriend, said she was insecure. This is basically part of a long-running theme in his tweets where he hits both of them, but he hits Brzezinski harder, more personally, and really, frankly, in a sexist fashion that is designed to portray her as this insecure, unintelligent side piece who wouldn't even be on TV if it were not for her romantic relationship with Scarborough.
So first off, great piece. I think that kind of broke down the timeline very nicely. It felt like without bias.
Yeah, it was from the Washington Post, of all places,
It was
too.
very, very nicely done. I want to comment that. Secondly, obviously, there is a rift between Scarborough and Trump and Mika. Those are the kind of things that I think that any president of the United States should rise above on and just let it go.
Yeah, well, like she says, they got him.
Yeah, and
even if they don't really have him even if they don't really have the moral high ground, they do have him on the fact they triggered him.
And I know Sarah Huckabee Sanders said, hey, the president's fighting back against this, and I understand the why. I really do. But you're the president of the United States. You won the election by 7,000 electoral votes, and you shouldn't worry about this anymore. You should govern and do your best.
I expand on this in the overtime, but I know not everybody listening to this part of the show listens to the overtime, and so I'll just give you context. Part of me thinks, this is why Trump was elected, and part of me does by his base, and part of me does wonder if future presidents will now do this. Because he says this is modern presidential.
But
here's the part I want to expand on. Here, I want to draw a comparison. I'm sick of comparing Obama, but let's just take a moment and compare Donald Trump's public reactions to criticism to Bush Jr.
Okay.
I don't often have many positive things to say about Bush Jr.
Yeah. My good friend, by the way.
His entire presidency, CNN nailed him over and over again. MSNBC, Bush was highly criticized by the media. Would you agree? Constantly.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And can you remember a single time where he really came out and quote unquote hit back?
No.
Maybe in a joking way during the annual White House press conference dinner thing.
And that's that kind of thing that happens during that period anyway.
Yeah, so that is an interesting draw that comparison, how Bush handled this kind of criticism versus how Trump is handling it. Because it's not like the first time that the media has been down this path. I still feel like they should be upping their game though. And there is a certain level of blame that lies at their feet. This kind of behavior is not acceptable.
On June 29th.
Nope, not that one. But the kind of behavior like where Joe was calling him a thug and an idiot. I mean, it's one thing to have that opinion, but he is the sitting president. I mean, I don't know.
If your 5-year-old went out and smacked or insulted somebody.
If somebody said this about my daughter, and I once again, I'm going to elevate the conversation. Donald, if you're watching.
I'm going to elevate the conversation. Donald, if you're watching, this is their favorite narcissistic thing to do, is they all like to pretend. Cucker does this, Hannity does this, they do it. They all like to pretend that Trump is watching them personally.
We're from Queens. I'll meet you in the schoolyard, brother. You need to be schooled.
Okay.
No, I'm serious. This is where this needs.
Can you put the sunglasses back?
No. He's a coward. He's a coward.
We want to
an ill coward.
All right, so earlier she made fun of him. Remember in the comment where she in this comment here where we played this, she said that he
Man feel better than making a fake cover.
Oh, that was it right there.
Feel better than making.
Hold on 1 second. Let me get just to make my point.
Nothing makes a man feel better.
Nothing makes a man feel better. So you have that comment from her, which to me that actually sounds kind of sexist. I mean, if I'm being honest with you.
It's.
And then you have Donnie Douche over there who wants to go fight him in the schoolyard. And this language is also it's volatile. It's quote unquote rhetoric.
See, and I look at the source. First off, Morning Joe, they have a morning show that they are trying to push ratings on. They are just all they're doing is offering their opinions on the stories of the day. They're not the ones out there in the trenches doing the reporting. That being said, that is their shtick, right? That's their thing. So for the president of the United States to jump on board with what they don't like what they're saying, it's just like anybody else,
He shouldn't
right?
be watching.
Yeah, he shouldn't be watching. He should be like, what can we do to get jobs here? What can we do to keep our security safe?
Yeah.
The things that matter to people. Now, I understand that, he got elected based upon his behaviors. That's a part of it. Other people didn't like Hillary. Other people wanted a fresh change, whatever the reasons may be, okay? Now that he's in, people voted him in to do something. He's there now. You won. No one's questioning that anymore. No one cares anymore. They are, whether or not people accept it or not, that's another story, but you're the president. Let's make it happen. Let's do this. And it feels like he's trying to turn into an us being his cabinet, his administration versus them, meaning people that disagree. Let's come together. Let's get this job done. You want to make America great again? You want to make it great? This is not how you do it. Let's actually solve some problems here. It's just a big distraction from what really needs to get done, and that's the part that really pisses me off and grinds my gears.
I think you echo Tucker, your good beer buddy's friends.
Oh yeah, we hang out all the time.
John Daniel Davidson is the senior correspondent at The Federalist, and he joins us now. So, John, it seems to me this is the single greatest thing that has happened to cable news. Nothing allows anchors to feel as virtuous, quite as virtuous, as when Donald Trump tweets.
No, it's terrible. Look, when the media reacts this way to Donald Trump's tweets, it just confirms his criticism of the media to all his supporters, because it's embarrassing to the media, which should be focused on a lot of the important issues that you were talking about earlier about sanctuary
Everybody
cities.
should.
There's a health care bill that's being debated right now. But, I mean, that's not to say that
but those topics are boring. They don't drive ratings.
See, and that's, you're
Trump
right.
should be tweeting. I want to be clear. Trump
I agree with
probably
that.
shouldn't tweet. But when he does,
Tucker's like,
he sort of provokes this overreaction on the part of not just the media, but Democrats. And I think that they think they're really getting him. They think that they're really got the best of Trump when they act like this. And I wish somebody would pull them aside and tell them that it's not having the effect that they think it's having.
I feel like on some level, they love it. I mean, it's like Christmas and New Year's and your birthday rolled into one, because the subtext of all of this criticism, and I agree with you, some of the criticism I think is valid, shouldn't be tweeting. But the subtext of their criticism is, I'm a great person. I'm like way better than you. And by the way, I'm tough, and I'd beat you up if I could. They're holding me back, but I'd get you if I could.
It's kind of true.
Yeah.
It's just like, really, I mean, they love it.
It's like
and to be fair, Tucker, you love it too, because you wouldn't be talking about this if
sure
you
he
weren't.
does. You can tell he's loving it because he's just having a good old time.
But I think we all come to agreement. I think most of us don't want to talk about this. We would rather be talking about things that honestly matter.
So the reason I think it's worth us talking about in this sense, and we don't often.
No, I know where you're going.
Is this is obviously going to come into play, especially during the midterms and the re-election. He's not going to live this down. And the Morning Joe hosts are now like display poster children of cyberbullying. It's fantastic, and it's totally whitewashing away the fact that the two of them cheated on their spouses and ran away together and have a bit of a tepid affair that is probably not too unsurprising, but you know it's still scandalous.
Sometimes the only way you win is by not playing the game. And, you know, I've had people tell me, you know, about a lot of things in my life, you know, hey, you know, sometimes, you know, if you want to have a shot, you got to get yourself in there. But sometimes you got to take the high road.
Let me frame this around then. So then why do you respond to the negative criticism on YouTube? I mean, put yourself in Trump's position. That's essentially what he's responding to the trolls.
Well, so first off, I don't respond. When I do respond, I try to be as concise and respectful in my comments.
Right, you're not incendiary, as they say.
Yeah, and you know, and I do respect the other person's point of view, and I more than anybody appreciate a very good dialogue. And you know, I have these dialogues with coworkers. I have these dialogues with you. I have them with our audience, and it's one of those things where if I can practice learning and knowing the other person's point of view, I think I can be a better person. And that's the only goal that I'm trying to do. I mean, I totally respect people out there that did vote for Trump because they honestly believed in their heart that he was the only way to get our country moving in the right direction, because they didn't trust the Clinton organization. They analyzed the data. They felt that they were doing they were picking who they felt. Now those people may still feel that way.
Oh, sorry, I was reaching into your sack a little early.
Yeah.
Did you feel that?
Yeah, I felt it. But no, I mean, I respond to all commentary. If it's something specific towards me, I try to respond to that to try to express my point of view and where my mode of thinking is. I honestly, I really try to come down the middle on this subject and try to look at our country and where we should be.
What a sideshow it's been. I hope this passes. I really do.
I want it to pass, because then at some point it's like the boy who cried wolf, right? You don't know if something's been invented on purpose to distract us from the situation,
right,
or it's an actual real
situation. That's definitely how I feel right now.
Yeah, it's like, come on, stop. Just stop. Thank you. Too much in the toilet. I feel better now.
All right, so in place of the sack this week, I just looked in there. We don't have much. What I would like to do is a little PSA, a little spot for the show's support method here, patreon.com/unfilter. You go there, support the show. We're trying to get to our next milestone to do a supplemental show, an additional show each week to stay on top of all of the news and while stuff is still hot and relevant. We only got one supporter this week, so one of the things we're going to do to encourage sign-up, since the summertime is here and people are spending their money on wax for their surfboards.
Hey, don't stereotype, man.
And their bathing suits. I don't know.
Yeah, well, they might want to wax their bathing suit areas.
While supplies last, we're going to give away the #OhNancy stickers to new patrons in the month of July.
What?
Yeah, Patreon. You don't even have to be in the swag club, although you could get in the swag club and get future stuff too. Patreon.com/unfilter. We're trying to get to that supplemental show. And also, just a little reminder, I will be in Montana the week of the 19th when we typically record a Unfilter show. So in 2 weeks, we will not have an episode.
I would have liked to see Montana.
Indeed. I'm going there, but I will not have a good connection, so there's no way I could pull down all gigs.
I want to apologize, by the way, for to Club 33 today. So my schedule got all whacked out. I was one of the lucky engineers to work on the 4th of July evening.
How'd that go?
It was fun. It was a good evening. A lot of work to do.
You missed an incredible barbecue, dude.
I know.
People brought amazing food.
Ange texted me, and she's like, hey, can you come on by? And I'm like, I can't. I got to go work. But usually what I do is on Wednesday mornings, I send out.
I invited you last week during the show.
Well, I knew too. Yeah, no, I let you know during the show.
Yeah,
I let Ange know.
Yeah. There's still some in the fridge.
Oh, wow. But anyway, apologies to Club 33. Don't worry. Look forward to that email next week for the show. And don't worry, I think we still have a couple spots open. So if you want to jump in Club 33 now, get a part of my sack.
OMG, OMG, OMG.
Like Megyn Kelly's a part of. jump on over to patreon.com/unfiltered.
They're having a hard time with their new show.
I know.
Just taking the week off.
Yeah.
And ratings are bad.
Now, to be fair, most summer ratings aren't very good.
Yeah. You know what I've learned, even launching Linux Action is you probably don't want to launch a show in the summer. We've gotten a good bounce, but I think we would have probably done even better if we had launched it like in
September.
the fall. Or yeah. All right, Mr. Chase. Well, we have some big news in the high note this week. Our audience...
Las Vegas.
Our audience members down there, I've gotten some notes from some of them, like listener Seth, who is very excited and already seeing positive changes.
There's a new vice coming to Sin City. Well, at least now it'll be legal.
I hope that we can take this product and accept it for what it is and kind of overcome the stigmas of the past.
In Nevada, medical marijuana has been around for years, but this Saturday, July 1st, adults 21 and over will be able to buy up to an ounce of pot for recreational use. Nevada will become the 5th state to allow it after voters approved in November. 3 others will start next year.
What are you going to do about that momentum, Sessions? What are you going to do? Huh?
Calm down there, Chris. Calm down.
What are you going to do?
Calm down.
I should probably I should smoke a J and calm down.
Chris, smoke it and let the clip play.
Saturday, July 1st, adults 21 and over will be able to buy up to an ounce of pot for recreational use. Nevada will become the 5th state to allow it after voters approved in November. 3 others will start next year. Talk about high stakes. A 10% tax is projected to rake in more than $60 million over the next 2 years.
Jeez.
Vegas.
Honestly,
betting on it.
that feels low than what other states are doing.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't like Washington doing like 15 or 20 and Colorado's doing like 15 or 20?
It's like,
that feels
or
low.
more than that.
Yeah,
even.
it feels low.
Especially Vegas.
Yeah, I know.
Down there, like, you know what though? I say that's the way to do it. I say you pull the Scotty maneuver and you like, so Scotty always says if something's going to take him an hour, he tells Captain Kirk it's going to take him 2 hours. That's Scotty's. That's how it becomes the magic. The miracle worker, because he always gets it done in half the time, because he always quotes it's going to take double the time.
Yeah, you overestimate.
Yeah,
and you under.
So in this case, you do the reverse. You underestimate how much revenue you're going to make, and then
boom,
you have this huge story. We've actually made $90 million.
Ah, yes.
Who doesn't want to go down to Vegas and smoke a J while they're walking around the streets of Vegas?
Oh, boy.
They're going to get in trouble probably. People
Well, now, are the casinos allowing it?
I don't think so, but eventually that's going to... I mean, if the casinos want it, they have so much
How are you going to stop
influence.
somebody who's on an edible or something, right?
Well, there's that too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, good point. I haven't thought of that.
Yeah.
Somebody could definitely have an edible and then go in a casino.
They eat a pot brownie and they go in and play the craps.
I suspect that the casinos will make so much money that they're going to eventually get behind it.
Cigarette, cannabis, alcohol,
all of the above, they'll say.
Tourism boom.
I don't think it's going to be a gold rush, but I think there'll definitely be an increase in some visitors as a result of the legalization.
Technically, the drug's still illegal at the federal level.
I honestly think people will travel the world.
By the way, Demert's telling us in the chat, $600 fine if you caught smoking in public.
Yeah,
down there.
yeah.
So
that's why I'm saying they're going to get in trouble, just like in Seattle, right? But eventually what happens is then the police get a directive to under-prioritize smoking violations, so it becomes like the least of their concerns.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's like a parking ticket.
I mean, how many times have I walked by a crowd in Seattle and I've gotten a huge cloud of cannabis smoke in my face?
Yeah.
Actually, literally every time I go to Seattle, that happens to me. And it's actually more pleasant than cigarette smoke, so if I was going to have to inhale one or the other. But my point here is, I think they are dramatically underestimating the draw that Vegas has worldwide. Having spoken to audience members who have come to the States maybe once or twice, maybe it's once to go to Linux Fest, and it's the other time it was to go to Vegas.
You know what I wonder how it's going to work is when the Raiders move to Vegas.
Yeah.
The Raider Nation is going to be all high. In the end zone.
They're not going to be the loudest crowd.
Oh, my God.
Opponents say tying tourism to pot is a terrible idea.
I think Nevada has to think long and hard if they want to be known now as the Amsterdam of weed. It is much stronger than it used to be. It's sending more kids to the hospital.
Oh, I love that.
Does Seattle want to be the Amsterdam? Does Denver, Colorado want to be the
and more
San
kids in the
Francisco?
hospital? And my source for that information is...
Oh, by the way, accidents have gone up.
And we just believe it.
Yep.
And the legalization industry is turning into another predatory...
Wait.
Oh, I love it, dude.
The legalization industry.
The legalization industry, which is a separate effort in each individual state.
Right.
Tobacco-type industry.
You won't be able to smoke it in public, just
good.
private homes.
Yeah.
So no lighting up in casinos or hotels.
Mark my words, Red Book prediction, that is going to be happening.
I bet you 100. I bet bet you for Vegas.
rever-
I bet you $500.
No, what you should
Chris.
do is bet me a reverse steak dinner. But no, what would be the point?
I bet you a steak dinner at the Treasure Island that people will be definitely doing stuff in casinos. And I bet you that the casino will be like, come on in. Come on in.
They might be worried about the smells in hotels.
Well, maybe they won't be completely, like, say you can vape or you can have an edible.
Oh, vaping, of course.
Yes.
You know, it's so funny when they frame this. I hadn't thought of edibles. I hadn't thought of vaping because the way they talk about
They just talk about smoking.
Yeah.
And it's not just about that
but
anymore.
you could vape, like, under the radar in Vegas all day long.
And they would never know. No one would
But there are questions about enforcement, and near the Strip, edibles are expected to fly off shelves.
I don't know. I think there's benefits to legalizing it and not. So
I'm pretty sure. Everything else is in Vegas. They might as well.
With more than 40 million annual tourists already, this budding industry will be watching what happens in Vegas.
Yeah.
Because they will stay in Vegas.
Yeah.
Back to you.
Back to you. Back to you.
Back to you.
Yeah, it is going to be, I think, huge for Vegas. And the reason why I keep hammering that point is because the momentum that's building isn't just the legal precedent that's being set in these individual states, making it more and more a states' right issue, but it's also the sheer amount of money that's being made, and that's going to be impossible.
If anything, I think it goes to show that with anything in moderation, it can be done safely. And I think what's going on is all these states are starting to realize that the bogusness is not true, and they can make a whole bunch of revenue.
Well, I think that's very, very likely.
Yes.
Well, buddy, you know, we have more show coming up. The Overtime is just around the corner with additional clips, and it's brought to you by our patrons at patreon.com/unfilter.
Listeners like you.
But in case people are done with their veggies and need to head out for the week, Mr. Chase, I believe we should leave them with a little parting wisdom. Where should they find you throughout the week?
Please, I love the interaction on Twitter at Nunes, Nunes is my Twitter handle. You can also follow my gaming stuff that I do at GeekGamerTV. A lot of fun stuff. We're good, by the way. Happy to announce for the 6th consecutive year we will be covering PAX as media. And maybe we can steal you because I just tweet. I put out a old video clip. Where can people follow your stuff, man? Your vlogs and all that fun jazz.
At Chris LAS on the tweeters, and go find me on YouTube, youtube.com/Chris Fisher. That's my name. And also follow the network at Jupiter Signal for show announcements, news, and don't forget that RSS feed because you know we're going to have a week off. And, you know, by the time it comes up, you might forget which episode it was going to be. Just go subscribe to the feed.
Do it.
And then you get the show every single week when we put it out.
That's easy.
Don't forget that full live stream is available whenever possible thanks to YouTube at patreon.com/unfilter for everybody.
Yes.
Supporters or freeloaders. Enjoy the whole thing, the Unfiltered experience over there. Okay, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning this week's episode. I hope you had a great 4th of July if you celebrated it. Enjoyed the fireworks, and we'll see you right back here
next week.
Brought to you by our patrons at patreon.com/unfilter. Thank you to our patrons over at patreon.com/unfilter for staying woke. Only one new patron this week. William M., you have the strong sauce, my friend. And you have inspired me, William. You have inspired me to encourage more patrons. We're going to give away, that was like dramatic. We're going to give away a sticker to, while supplies last, to our new patrons that sign up for the month of July. You don't have to be swag level. We have some extra Oh Nancy stickers. We just have a few left, but enough to give out to a good handful of new patrons. So patreon.com/unfilter. If you sign up in the month of July, you will get an hashtag Oh Nancy sticker. However, you can also join the swag level and then just get all that stuff all the time. Speaking of Oh Nancy, should we get started this week with our Oh Nancy segment? I only really have one clip of Nancy, but it's a long one and it's a doozy. So Nancy Pelosi gets confused about the time of day, not once, but twice in this clip, forgets the latest Russia accusations just 6 minutes after she's made them, and stumbles through many of her words. Ladies and gentlemen, the latest and greatest from Nancy Pelosi.
It is afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm honored this morning, or now afternoon. And what does that mean? Higher cost or fewer benefits, a terrible age tax, undermining Medicare, stealing from Medicare and Medicaid, as I should have said. As they do this, they're making an assault on Medicaid, which is, again, very dangerous to children and other living things should they succeed. And one of the things that they have not done is paid sufficient attention to the assault on our electoral system that the Russians perpetrated in the last campaign.
Okay, keep track.
For one example.
Okay.
They're doing it in other countries. They may have done it here before.
Okay.
They hacked our democracy.
Okay, they hacked our democracy. Okay.
21 states.
Whoa! 21 states now. 21 states. I wonder if anybody in the chat room would want to Google how many states the DHS worked with to do cybersecurity penetration testing. I wonder if it was 21.
And local election systems were penetrated.
Would that be the same 21 states? So did you just count the same thing twice?
And again, we are finding out things that
This is 6 minutes later.
we didn't even know before. For example, was it how many states have been
How many, Nancy?
compromised?
Chat room, how many was it?
And all of this.
How many was it, guys? How many?
21.
He's giving her that. You hear that? Hey.
Compromised and all of this.
There you go. Helping her out. Hey, it's 21.
Compromised and all of this. 21 states. And again, I always say, what is it that the Russians have on Donald Trump, politically, personally, or financially, that we have to pussyfoot around when it comes to sanctions on Russia?
I always say, what connections and blackmail does Nancy Pelosi have over her own party members that she remains in power? You see how that works? You see how you can throw that shit around, Nancy? Now, those of you that have been tuning into Overtime for a while know that this segment is really about identifying the rot. The rot, and you know what I'm talking about. Debt, Democratic Party rot. The one that's causing them to lose election after election. The most important election, of course, the presidency, but even all of the lower levels of governments. There's a rot, and the people can smell it. And I think parts of the Democratic Party are becoming very aware of it, even the ones that aren't in the Bernie wing. And so let's do a little examination of a range of characters. And let's start this week with a name and a brand that the Democrats need to distance themselves from as fast as freaking possible. That's your good buddy, my friend, the internet's favorite, John Podesta.
In the United States.
There's a real question about what the response from the DNC was when your emails were hacked. I mean, look, obviously your emails were hacked, the DNC emails were hacked. It was a huge deal during the campaign, and it may very well have swayed people in terms of the election. Now, Congressman Trey Gowdy of South Carolina is asking why a decision was made not to turn over the Democratic National Committee and Hillary Clinton's email server to law enforcement or intelligence agencies. When you got hacked, why wasn't the DNC got hacked? Why wasn't the DNC server passed over? Why wasn't it given to law enforcement and the intelligence agencies?
I like how he licks his lips there like a lizard. That's nice.
Enforcement or intelligence agencies. When you got hacked, why wasn't the DNC got hacked? Why wasn't the DNC server passed over? Why wasn't it given to law enforcement and the intelligence agencies? Did you not want government agencies to investigate this?
That sounds like she's asking a hard-hitting question, but in reality, she's giving him a softball. It sounds like she really sounds like she's nailing him on this. Why didn't you want them to look at the server?
You got hacked. Why wasn't the DNC got hacked? Why wasn't the DNC server passed over? Why wasn't it given to law enforcement and the intelligence agencies? Did you not want government agencies to investigate this?
So that sounds like, okay, yeah, all right. Boy, look at her. She's putting it to John Podesta. Of course, it's a super easy, simple question for Podesta to answer because he had nothing to do with the frickin' DNC.
look, the Hillary Clinton servers were turned over to the agencies. With respect to the DNC, I wasn't involved with that. I was the chair of Hillary's campaign. That was a matter for the DNC. I don't know the circumstance of whether they were asked for them or whether they said yes or no. But I think that if anything, it looks like the FBI was fairly casual, maybe is a kind word, about the fact that they were what they knew, how much they were investigating. They were lackadaisical in their approach to the DNC. So I think you have to look at the whole picture. And it seems like, if anything, it's on the FBI that didn't come forward and really inform the DNC about what was going on until long after essentially the horse was out of the barn door.
Why?
So it's the FBI's fault, guys. Just ask John. John says it's the FBI's fault, straight up. The FBI just didn't want the server bad enough, so they were lackadaisical about it. Okay. Yeah, I guess blame the fire guy, right? Blame James. Blame James. Blame the fire guy. Let's unpack this for a second. Let's go with this version just as a thought experiment. This isn't the first time I've heard this, and that's why I'm willing to just entertain it for a moment. I'm not saying I think it's true. I think it's obvious that they likely did everything they could to try to prevent the FBI from investigating those servers. So I'm not buying it for a second, but let's just go with it because I've heard other people report this as well. The FBI was happy to accept the results from a trusted third party. Well, to me, if I was going to cut through all the bullshit, it really suggests one thing to me. Each party knew that the Russian narrative was bullshit, and so there was no sense of urgency. You see what I'm saying? The DNC knew that the Russian narrative was bullshit. The FBI, in their position of information, knew that the Russian narrative was a political smokescreen. And so there was no real urgency to getting their hands on the server. Why waste our time? We've got real cases to solve. We've got real problems. We don't need to get involved in this political shitstorm. If they want to have a third party sign off and say it's the Russians, we'll accept it. So that I would ascribe that as lackadaisical. It's a possibility. It's a possibility that everyone was in on it. It's also a possibility that the DNC is full of a bunch of liars who have been exposed as liars, like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who's being blackmailed right now, and that we shouldn't trust a damn thing that John Podesta or anyone from the DNC says about the entire situation. Yeah, no, that's also very possible. But now you're seeing Democrats who want to win elections in the midterms separating themselves from the rest of the party.
Let me get your take on your party overall before we go. As you know, your party has not been on a roll when it comes to winning elections, lost presidency. Democrats lost to 4 special elections recently. Bernie Sanders came out earlier this month and said it's the Democratic Party that lost this election, not that Donald Trump won it. He says the Democratic Party lost it. Do you think your party needs a reboot, needs a different strategy heading into the midterms?
Absolutely.
I wonder if a reboot is going to be a term that starts taking off. Keep it on. That could work. That's a reboot. It's techie. It plays well with the Silicon Valley supporters. It's a reboot.
I think we need a revival.
A revival. Ooh, that plays well with the flyover states. I am liking this.
We need to really understand and listen to the American people.
All those poor people that are beneath me?
We need to have connection. When I ran, I told the local Democrats that I am not running for the Democratic Party. I am not even running against the Republican Party. I'm running for the people in my district, and that's what we need to come back to.
That's basically a populist position. And it's probably one that could work.
Essence of who we are, which is to stand up for the American people and really fight for them and their concerns in the workplace. There's concerns in the classroom. There are concerns at home. There are concerns in the physicians' offices. And this is what we need to stand for, because in this debate with healthcare, there are Republican patients, there are Democratic patients, there are Republican and Democratic seniors who are going to lose their potential nursing home care, and that's what we need to fight for.
Congressman, thank you very much.
Whoa! Woo! Yeah, so he's essentially saying, I might have Democrat in my name, but that's just so that way I have a chance of winning. Isn't that kind of what he's saying? So I said we get to more in the overtime, and I meant it. Here is a little more information about the story that started this whole Twitter feud between the idiots on Morning Joe and the idiots in the White House.
In 5 of President Trump's clubs around the country, including Mar-a-Lago, there hangs a framed Time magazine cover from 2009 featuring one Donald J. Trump. It's a fake, a Photoshop, first reported by the Washington Post's David Farenthold. That's why he gets the Pulitzers. Some tip-offs include the use of exclamation points. Trump is hitting on all fronts, even TV, and The Apprentice is a television smash. The date was made up. Time Inc. confirmed there was no March 1st, 2009 issue. The White House response today, we couldn't comment on the decor at Trump golf clubs one way or another. Donald Trump was never on the cover of Time magazine at all in 2009. There was, however, a March 2nd, 2009 issue with Kate Winslet on the cover, and whoever did the phony Trump cover borrowed some of the headlines from the real cover and just dragged them over and put them on the fake one. And then someone took that Photoshop Time magazine cover and had it printed, blown up 5 times, and then framed, and then hung in at least 5 Trump clubhouses to impress the membership. Now, if any of those members happen to scan the barcode on the fake Time magazine cover, they discover it's actually a barcode for software that lets you be a karaoke DJ.
I love it.
It all adds a bit of perspective on a day when the president tweeted that basically every news outlet in America is fake news. Hey there, Chris Hayes from MSN.
Oh, you got him there, Chris Hayes. Oh, you really got him there, didn't you, buddy? Whoa, that was fake news. It is an easy one, though, to go after him. I'll give him that. I'll give him that. Now they're going after Obama, though, them being the kind of Democrats that stopped by MSNBC, for his lack of Russia response. And I covered this last week. But now, I got a bunch of clips of it. I thought, let's just have a fun moment. Watch how the tides turn when the political winds just blow in a certain direction.
When you were asked what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America, you said Russia.
Uh-oh.
Not Al-Qaeda.
What?
You said Russia.
You guys remember that?
Do you think that the Obama administration choked and should have done more when it knew that the Russians were interfering?
Yes.
I think the Obama administration should have done a lot more when it became clear that not only was Russia intervening, but it was being directed at the highest levels of the Kremlin.
President Obama, he did not do nothing. He did a lot, but he didn't do enough.
Is that there was smoke coming out of the kitchen. The response was to open the windows when we needed them to really take a fire extinguisher to the problem.
And talked about hacking going on, but he didn't specify that it was Russia.
Given the seriousness of this, I think the administration needed to call out Russia earlier.
Criticized former President Barack Obama for not doing enough. By the way, I happen to agree with that.
Needed to act to deter and punish Russia earlier.
Kind of a slap on the wrist.
And I think that was a very serious mistake.
Well, what was known back in August, and once it was verified and cross-checked, should have been made public.
And it was set in terms that you could easily have just ignored.
I wish that he and the administration would have acted differently here.
The biggest long-term threat to our democracy, indeed democracy around the world, that does come from Russia.
In the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back because the Cold War has been over for 20 years.
Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. President Trump's travel ban officially went into effect just a few seconds ago. We'll get to that momentarily. But first this morning, Washington melted down. You may have heard about it. Not because war broke out or the economy collapsed. Worse, the president tweeted something nasty about cable news hosts. In case you're returning from New Zealand tonight and missed it, here's what he wrote. Quote, I heard poorly rated Morning Joe speaks badly of me. Don't watch anymore. Then how come low IQ crazy Mika, along with Psycho Joe, came to Mar-a-Lago 3 nights in a row around New Year's Eve and insisted on joining me? She was bleeding badly from a facelift. I said no. Well, that was it. Chaos erupted. Democrats in Congress rushed to the nearest microphone to express shock and horror and call for the president's resignation.
I think it's so blatantly sexist, I don't even know that there's a question about it. But sad to say, I am still the highest-ranking woman. I thought that was all going to be resolved in November.
You see, I got you guys some Nancy. I just didn't put her up top.
And call for the president's resignation.
You're welcome.
I think it's so blatantly sexist, I don't even know that there's a question about it. But sad to say, I am still the highest-ranking woman. I thought that was all going to be resolved in November. Instead, we have a person in the White House who not only doesn't happen to be a woman, but happens to disrespect women. That's too bad.
You spend your time in the morning dealing with attacking human beings that happen to be Americans and happen to be the media. Well, let me tell you something, Mr. President. I've gone through, as a member of the Judiciary Committee, impeachments. But we can't wait that long. It is time for you to resign.
Well, meanwhile, over at CNN, you would have thought a new ISIS torture tape had been released, except worse, because it was Trump.
The man who in his life and in the campaign has acted like a misogynist, a sexist, a sexual predator. He is just not a decent human being.
This is objectively a statement from the highest office in the land, from the president, that objectifies women. This is a statement that is cruel. It attacks a woman's appearance.
This dude, this disgusting dude, is the president of the United States and says, listen, you crazy lunatic 70-year-old man, baby, stop it. You are now the president of the United States, the commander-in-chief, and you need to stop acting like a mean girl.
Got that? Because Trump attacked one woman, he attacked all women. He's a sexist because he's acting like, quote, a mean girl, which is suddenly a feminist thing to say, despite the fact it's an attack on girls. Okay, so what is this really about? Well, first, Trump is fighting back. The media suggests he's a mentally ill criminal. He calls them on their facelifts. He's a brawler. They're shocked by that, but they shouldn't be. There's something else going on, though. Trump doesn't play by the rules. He's a threat to the people who make and enforce the rules. In this case, the media establishment here in Washington. They hate him for that, and for good reason. They pretty much said so out loud today.
I can tell you, working overseas in war zones, people are emboldened by the actions of this administration, emboldened by the all-out sort of declaration of war on the media.
ISIS is emboldened by Trump's tweets. Let's break that down just for a second, just to address that specifically. I
can tell you, working overseas in war zones, people are emboldened by the actions of this administration.
Well, so first of all, ISIS is a CIA-funded operation, funded and supplied by the CIA and our partners from Qatar and Turkey and Saudi Arabia and others, probably Israel. But let's set that aside here for a second, and let's just address that particular thing head on. To me, it seems like Trump is a loose cannon who has a thin skin, who will attack anybody who comes after him. And he'll do it in a public platform, or he'll do it behind the scenes, or he'll do it in a way that is devastating to a person. Seems like that's sort of what we've come to. If I'm a terrorist, or if I'm the Chinese president, or I'm Vladimir Putin, I'm watching this and I'm going, this son of a bitch has a short fuse and I better not fuck with him, because otherwise he's going to screw my shit up. He's going to hit me 10 times harder. I am not defending the behavior, but I am simply saying he looks like a loose cannon who will hit you 10 times harder. That's actually probably a message we would want to send to terrorists. So I kind of find this entire analysis to be horseshit. Also, this woman who is speaking never actually goes into Syria. She's always on the border of Turkey, or she's always in Israel. So this reporter is... she's a phony. This is what drives me crazy about her, is she does these exposés on the Assad regime's chemical attack, and she does it from Jerusalem. As if her shooting on location at Jerusalem gives her some sort of additional authority on the matter. It drives me totally crazy. And then here she is, citing how when she's over there, she notices it emboldens people.
I can tell you, working overseas in war zones, people are emboldened by the actions of this administration, emboldened by the all-out sort of declaration of war on the media.
There are people in the country who don't understand that this is a cynical reality TV game and are going to hear over and over again.
This is the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic here.
We're going to hear over and over again from the president that the reporters, journalists, are enemies of the state. And someone, I mean, God forbid, but someone is going to do something violent against,
God forbid,
journalists in a large way. And then I know where the fault lies.
So not only are they thin-skinned narcissists, but they're also a bunch of paranoid losers.
In other words, disagreement equals violence. If you criticize me, you're a physical threat. I feel unsafe. You must be silenced. First they came for Morning Joe. You've seen this gambit on college campuses for years. It's how liberals silence dissent by conflating contrary opinions with violence.
I have to say,
if it's strange to see middle-aged reporters...
Excuse me. I have to say, I was in Berkeley when Trump was elected, actually, just after he's elected, during the protests. There was people there, you know, I mean, it doesn't feel like they're open to the concept of free speech, open-minded discussion. It felt very, you're either with us or you're a fascist enemy. And it was kind of intense because not only was it sort of intense for me, but Alan Jude was there, and he's from Canada, so he's watching all of this with sort of a detached perspective. So to hear his thoughts on it was really interesting too. And essentially, to him, it's like, well, yeah, Trump's a moron. From the Canadian perspective, they all think. I think a lot of them that would be considered liberal up in Canada think Trump's a moron. But even to him, like, he's like, these protesters are being ridiculous.
Threat. I feel unsafe. You must be silenced. First they came for Morning Joe. You've seen this gambit on college campuses for years. It's how liberals silence dissent by conflating contrary opinions with violence. If it's strange to see middle-aged reporters in a studio in Washington fretting about their own safety, it shouldn't be. Passive aggression is the universal currency of the left. Nothing is more empowering than victimhood.
Wow. Wow, Tucker. He's just going all in now. He's got his own show.
It won't be long before NBC's entire White House unit claims affirmative action status. So the left's response to this is predictable and silly. No surprise there. But that is no defense of these tweets. They were stupid and they were counterproductive. They achieved no policy objective. They elevated a televised sideshow to cultural icon status. They brought joy to the left while embarrassing the president's supporters. They allowed liberals to crow about the degradation of the public square, even as they financed their campaigns with donations from Hollywood sleaze merchants.
Oh, what?
Let's be totally clear about this and not lie about it.
Oh,
the
okay.
left doesn't hate Trump because he's vulgar, though he is. They applauded when Barack Obama vacationed with rappers. They think Lena Dunham is an artist. They hired Kathy Griffin. No, they hate Trump because he's a nationalist who says the interests of America and its people ought to come first. And that's fine. Let them hate him for that. The rest of the country loves it. That's the real tragedy of today's tweets. They were a diversion. When the president talks about the people who elected him, he wins. When he talks about himself, the left does. The president was not elected to pick fights with TV hosts. He was elected because he promised an agenda the country actually needs, but nobody else but him was offering. So in case he's watching tonight, here's a quick recap of what the campaign was about.
He might be.
Secure the border, keep America out of pointless wars, replace Obamacare with a system that expands affordable coverage for the middle class, bring jobs to the heartland, push back against the vultures on Wall Street. That's why people voted for Donald Trump. That's what he ought to do.
Wow.
The press doesn't like it, ignore them. If members of his staff try to divert his energy to other agendas, fire them.
Wow.
Rarely has a president been elected with a clearer message, a clearer mission, restore the middle class. If he sticks to that, he will win. If he doesn't, he won't.
Wow. Actually, I think he nails it at the end there. And what's weird about that, if you think about it, he's watching Trump. He's watching. You know he's watching. And Tucker has an idea and Tucker knows, right? You would know. Word comes out if the president watches your show, and he watches Fox, and he's watching news all the time, especially in the evening when Tucker's on. The reason I mentioned that, could you imagine that? Could you imagine, like, if I found out that Trump watched this show and I did something like that? That takes some balls. I just putting myself in that position. Imagine if you could upload a YouTube video and you knew that the president was watching that live. And that could have, of course, for Tucker, that means it has impacts on his career. Like, telling the president to STFU on Twitter and get back to the agenda. And by the way, here's what your agenda was in case you forgot. I got to give it to Tucker. That's not bad.
I think we're always looking for ways to add additional flexibility.
Now, this is a bit of an awkward moment
here. Something certainly to be considered.
Coming up is Sarah Huckabee Sanders having to struggle right after Trump had tweeted about the Morning Joe host.
Sarah, what about the Republicans who are criticizing the president?
I want to go back to the shooting and remember what President Trump said then. He said, our country will perhaps become closer, more unified. So important.
So important.
Does his tweet this morning, his series of tweets, help to unify the country?
Again, Kristen, I think I've asked, and this question has been asked, and I've answered it several times.
Do his tweets help to unify the country, to do what he said he wanted to see happen in the wake of that shooting?
Look, again, I think that the president is pushing back against people who attack him day after day after day. Where is the outrage on that? You guys are constantly coming and asking, like, is this okay? He does it one time. This is day after day after day. And it's not just the president. The only person that I see a war on is this president and everybody that works for him.
Oh, man.
To follow up on that. One is that I understand your point, but he is the president of the United States. They are cable news anchors, so he has to stand to a higher standard.
No, the chat room's asking, did Spicer quit? No, Spicer is still there, but she's been taking the camera more and more. I'm not, something is definitely going on.
One. And two, you talk about criticism. He said that former President Obama wasn't born in this country, right? So he clearly was a part of criticizing.
They're never going to let it go.
The past president, who was not immune to criticism himself. So I wonder how you make that argument.
Again, I think I've been pretty clear that when the president gets hit, he's going to hit back harder, which is what he did here today.
Steve, higher standard than cable news anchor, Sarah, doesn't he have to meet a higher standard than cable news?
Higher standard.
Look, I don't think you can expect someone to be personally attacked day after day, minute by minute.
Let's take that just for 1 second. So I do kind of like the assumption here. So she said, hold on, let me go back, see if I can get it, because it was a good point.
Hit back harder, which is what he did here today.
Yeah.
Steve.
No, listen, because there's a lot of overtalk.
Than cable news anchor, Sarah, doesn't he have to meet a higher standard?
Doesn't he have to meet a higher standard than cable news anchors?
And cable news anchors.
Now, what I find great about that question is yes, the answer is yes. But what it also is a get out of jail free card. Because you can go around and yell poo-poo and shit on air all you want, and then be like, but we're cable news, you know? So that's fine, right? Vaginas, everybody. High five. Cable news. And then, like, what is that? Like, that is, like, the worst defense ever. So you get to throw any shit on the wall that you want and see what sticks. And it doesn't matter what it is, because at the end of the day, you can go, yeah, but we're cable news, so, right? Everybody's cool, right? But he's POTUS. He's POTUS.
News anchor, Sarah, doesn't he have to meet a higher standard than cable news anchors?
Look, I don't think you can expect someone to be personally attacked day after day, minute by minute, and sit back. Look, the American people elected a fighter. They didn't elect somebody to sit back and do nothing. They knew what they were getting when they voted for Donald Trump, and he won overwhelmingly.
Sarah, how is insulting a woman on Twitter being a fighter?
What about the impact of statements like this on his effectiveness? There was a Marist poll this week that said 68% of registered voters.
Man, you know what? I think they're going. I mean, maybe one reason they're going with Sarah here is because she's tough as rocks. I mean, she makes Spicy Sean look like a sweaty mess. I mean, she doesn't get rocked by any of this stuff. She handles these people with like efficiency, and I gotta give it to her. I don't like all the things that she's saying, but the way she handles it compared to any other press secretary that I've ever watched, I couldn't stand Josh Earnest. And Spicy, while he's fun, he does look like a bit of a hot mess, and it's easy for somebody to like SNL to mock him for it because he's kind of a hot mess up there. But she's a rock. You know, the chat room and I were talking about why Spicy Sean hasn't been there. And one of the ideas floated was that maybe they put a woman up there to soften the reporters a bit. That could be, because they're not going to mock a woman like they mock Spicy Sean, I suspect. They won't be at least when it comes to appearances, like sweating and things like that, they wouldn't go after her like they would Spicy Sean. So that is a really calculated, almost reverse sexist move by the White House, if that's true. I think, though, the more charitable version is they put her in here because she's better than Sean, and they're perhaps trial running her to see if she should just replace Sean. That would be my charitable version of it, is that Sean's going to become the director of he is going to become the director of communications, and she's going to be his replacement. The reason why they haven't announced her as it is because they're just not sure yet, because this is a tough as hell job. Could you imagine Especially like when you don't agree with some of the stupid shit that Trump has tweeted. Like, you're like, why is this guy going after Mika Brzezinski again? Why? Oh, I got to go out there and talk to these idiots about that. Like, that would be the most frustrating thing ever for them. Because these are real people. They have their own opinions and ideas and thoughts. So it's got to be the toughest job out there. And so I think they're just letting her go out there and see how she does in the kitchen.
Week that's at 68%.
That's probably coming across sexist, but you know what I mean? Like, toss her in and see if she can keep up.
Percent of registered voters say the president's tweets are reckless and distracting. Only 22% say that they're effective and informative. And Republicans on this question are split down the middle. Half of Republicans say that they're reckless and distracting. So how can you argue that this is something the president must do?
Oh, Axiom says, and I don't know if this is true or not, but Axiom in our chat room says that she has a strong religious background, has supported Trump for a while, and is a rallier for support in Trump's base. I didn't know that. I guess maybe I could spend 5 minutes and Google her. I guess actually maybe I should, since she seems to be around more and more. She just they kind of slipped her in, so I just sort of sat back and didn't think too much more about it.
I answered this question yesterday in regards to the poll. I think anytime the president has a chance to speak directly to the American people, it's a good thing.
Oh!
Sarah, as a woman, how do you feel about the president attacking another woman specifically for her looks, and what does that show as an example to how men should be treating other women?
Now, this is an interesting one. The woman angle. So this is a woman reporter asking a woman spokesperson. And I don't know what Sarah's about to say here, but look at that face. That is like, I'm disgusted with you. I'm about to rip you a new one face.
Look, everybody wants to make this an attack on a woman and equality. What about the constant attacks that he receives or the rest of us? I'm a woman, and I've been attacked by this show multiple times, but I don't cry foul because of it. I think that, you want to create this false narrative. One hand, it's like, let's treat everybody equally, and on the other hand, they attack, and he responds, and apparently that's wrong. I'm sorry, guys. I've answered this question. Hallie.
And this kind of gets to the point that's been made, and
exactly, this is the point that's been made, so I'm not sure why we're continuing to
talking about the president as a fighter. I just want to put it in, because you talk about being personally affected by all of this as well, and that nothing is wrong with the president fighting fire with fire is the argument that you're making. So I would ask this to you sort of on a personal level. You have stood here and talked about your family.
Personal level. Your family.
Are you going to tell your kids this behavior is okay?
Wow! Now, do you think they would have asked that question to Sean? No. Of course not. But because she's a woman, they can use this against her now. Isn't that incredible? And it's another woman doing it.
Look, I've been asked before when it comes to role models as a person of faith. I think we all have one perfect role model. And when I'm asked that question, I point to God, I point to my faith.
Oh,
and that's where I would tell my kids to look.
Wow.
None of us are perfect.
Nailed it.
And certainly there's only one that is, and that's where I would point that direction.
Damn that. Boy, Trump's going to love that answer. Trump is going to, he's watching that and he's like, she's hired. That just got her the job. I guarantee it. That just got her the job. Trump's going to love that answer. Now, there's a story that I think is 100% possible. Absolutely. Don't know if it's true. I think it's 100% possible. And that is that Donald Trump was leveraging a tabloid against the Morning Joe hosts. The thing is the Inquirer is owned by a close personal friend of Donald Trump, and he has boasted in the past about personally killing stories in the Inquirer on behalf of his good buddy Donald Trump.
TMZ and my This morning, MSNBC's Mika Brzezinski hitting back at President Trump. Hitting back 24 hours after he personally attacked her on Twitter. My family brought me up really tough, but I am very concerned.
You guys remember what it was like on the internet before the normals were on there? And when somebody said something stupid on the internet, it was just them being a dick and trolling. And now it's attacking. It's like all the normals, they take it so seriously. Like as if somebody's Twitter feed shows up right in front of your face when you're walking around the real world. And I'm not trying to minimize what happens online. But it is so amazing to me, as someone who has been here since the age of BBSs, that we now take what people say on something as stupid as Twitter as if it is a statement that somebody says to your face. And I guess that's just how it has to be. I mean, it makes sense. I'm not criticizing necessarily, but I do come from a perspective, from like a late 80s perspective, looking at this and going, back in the day, you just didn't take it so seriously, because people say stupid shit behind a keyboard. They become keyboard warriors and they say stupid shit that they would never say to your face in person. But the problem is, now the whole damn world's on the internet, and they've ruined it.
TMZ and my This morning, MSNBC's Mika Brzezinski hitting back at President Trump 24 hours after he personally attacked her on Twitter.
My family brought me up really tough, but I am very concerned as to what this once again reveals about the President of the United States. It's strange.
A war of words, and now a new accusation. Joe Scarborough claiming 3 White House officials said they could stop a negative story from running in the National Enquirer if the hosts scaled back their ongoing criticism of the president.
And they said, if you call the president up and you apologize for your coverage, then he will pick up the phone and basically spike this story.
They were calling my children. They were calling close friends.
You're talking about the National Enquirer.
That prompting the president to tweet it.
I don't know if I believe that part of it. I can't tell you why. Just call it 242 weeks of doing this show, but that last part, that sounds unsubstantiated. It could have been anybody. It could have been anybody who thinks that Mika Brzezinski is simply in a position of privilege because of who her father was, and anybody who is a Donald Trump supporter that listens to the thing that she has said about Donald Trump that is pissed off. And then you take in people who might be a Donald Trump supporter who maybe are sexist. And then you take in people who have been cheated on by their wives, and then you really have a recipe for people to harass you, especially when you're a public figure. I think it's awful. It's a gross, disgusting aspect of humanity. But the reality is, it doesn't necessarily have to be Enquirer people harassing. And the reason why I say that too is Scarborough has backed off on some of that, and when Mika was pressed on it, she backed off a bit.
Coverage. Then he will pick up the phone and basically spike this story.
They were calling my children. They were calling close friends.
You're talking about the National Enquirer.
That prompting the president to tweet, it was the other way around. He called me to stop a National Enquirer article. I said no. Tonight, the Enquirer saying, at no time did we threaten either Joe or Mika or their children in connection with our reporting on the story. We have no knowledge of any discussions between the White House and Joe and Mika about our story, and absolutely no involvement in those discussions.
Now, the story is one that's already ran. It's already published. It's a story about how Joe cheated on his wife and Mika cheated on her spouse, and then Joe and Mika ended up together as a couple. That's the story. And I could see the Enquirer calling children and calling family members to try to get scoops.
An analysis by NBC News of back issues for the past several years during his campaign and his presidency found many pro-Trump headlines and stories and few critical of Mr. Trump. The Enquirer helped him launch his presidential campaign in 2015.
I like how the NBC report here is essentially pointing out that media ownership matters. Hey, NBC viewers, take that into account.
By running articles billed as being written by Mr. Trump himself. Now, more bipartisan calls for the president to apologize for his Twitter attack. The White House tonight defiant.
And I endorse, as the First Lady has said, him firing back when he's being mercilessly attacked. He is creating so much chaos that is completely overtaking any message of the week on health care, on visitors from foreign leaders.
Well, let's stop there. Okay, so let's hit the pause button, as I just did. So he's creating the chaos. Ultimately, I think the buck does stop with him. I go back to, I know I've mentioned this before, but I go back to George W. Bush, and I think about how he was constantly being torn apart on CNN for destroying the Constitution. It was their favorite line about George Bush. Bush is an idiot. Bush is destroying the Constitution. The Republicans are ruining the environment. They've destroyed the economy. They just nailed the guy for years, even late into his presidency. Nailed him. Of course, never nailed him really about wars and stuff like that, but they nailed him. They nailed him and nailed him and nailed him, especially on the more Democratic-leaning news outlets. And, I can't think of one time, really, that Bush took a shot. Can you? I mean, he's pretty much in hiding now, and he seems like a ruined man, but I can't ever think of a time that Bush came out and took a shot. So I really do believe that the buck does stop with Donald Trump. However, I don't think the label creator is fair. Having watched for many ages now the Morning Joe show, they have gone from Trump fan, surprisingly, like buddy with Trump, to now at war with Trump. And during that entire time, they have truly been the provocateurs. It really did start when Joe criticized Donald Trump for not disavowing David Duke, which Trump did kind of do later on. But during that whole process, when Trump was claiming, I don't know who this guy is, I don't have anything to do, that is the moment where the Morning Joe show turned and they went vicious against Trump. And that's when that was back, that was last year? That just changed everything.
Mercilessly attacked. He is creating so much chaos that is completely overtaking any message of the week on healthcare, on visitors from foreign leaders.
Now, is that fair when you are the ones writing the scripts that are being reported on and read on air? Donald Trump doesn't write your script. He responded to something that was said on air initially. I shouldn't have, but he responded to something that was said on air initially. And then the news outlets are the one that are making that the story. So I don't think the label creator is fair. I don't think you can pin this exactly on Donald Trump. It has to be the decision of the editorial process to make that the featured story. Now, should they or should they not? That's where you can debate, obviously. But you can't claim that Donald Trump made all of the news outlets cover it. They could have just not paid attention, I'm just saying they wouldn't, but they could have just not reported on Twitter and reported on other things. I know it's a gray area. I could see both sides, but I don't feel like it's Trump that's setting the tone so much as it's what the media is choosing to report on, and that's causing the chaos because that's what they focus on. So the chaos is essentially self-created.
Mercilessly attacked. He is creating so much chaos that is completely overtaking any message of the week on healthcare, on visitors from foreign leaders.
You could argue that because the visitors from foreign leaders has been going actually kind of okay, and especially since Merkel, and the healthcare stuff is really just a work in progress and there's nothing to report on exactly yet. You could say that it was the media that chose to run this as the primary headline because it was a detractor from Trump. Whereas if you reported on dignitaries visiting, that actually would look pretty good for Trump. You'd have to show him shaking hands. You'd have to show him doing stuff in the White House and the policies they're setting. And that just doesn't really fit with your narrative that he's a competent president. So you better go with the one that does. And that's probably why you're setting that as the tone. And that's where the chaos comes from.
That the chaos is swirling and nothing is getting done in Washington.
Well, that's because you're not covering the stuff that's getting done. You see that? That's a weird dichotomy because I seem to be seeing it.
One of the agenda items overshadowed today, the president's meeting with his South Korean counterpart, coming a day after the White House announced new sanctions aimed at North Korea. The president declaring the era of strategic patience with North Korea is over.
Oh, good. You love that, so you got to make sure you get that in there. I love that. All right, we got to move on, guys. We're all done with Trump. You ready to move on? Let's talk about the worst optics in politics this week. Probably not recoverable. Between this and the bridge, it's not recoverable.
One of the guys who ran against Donald Trump last year, one of the Republican candidates, is making some news this weekend. Millions flocking to the beach through the 4th of July holiday. But in New Jersey, state parks and beaches are closed unless you are the governor. Today marks the third day of a government shutdown in New Jersey, with state offices like DMVs and courts closed and tens of thousands of state workers set to be furloughed. At issue, passing a budget plan while restructuring insurance. The state assembly speaker, a Democrat, is blocking a vote because he believes it's bad policy and has derided the shutdown as the governor's hostage crisis. The governor sees it another way. Here's Chris Christie yesterday.
If they sent me a budget today, the shutdown would be over. It is the legislature that's choosing not to send me either budget. But I'm a little frustrated, quite frankly, at this point that no one will send me any budget. I'm sitting here waiting for a budget and no one will send me one. I quoted that great American philosopher Wimpy from the Popeye cartoons, you know, when he would say, I'd be glad to pay you tomorrow for a hamburger today. If I'm paying for the hamburger, I'm getting it today. Not waiting and trusting Vinny Prieto to do it.
What?
You know, sometime over the summer.
Governor, looked like you got some sun.
No, it didn't, Claude, but go ahead. I didn't get any sun today.
My question is this. Are there lifeguards at the...
No. No, there's no one at Island Beach State Park. There are no lifeguards. There's no one to pick up the garbage. There's no one providing any services at Island Beach State Park.
No one.
Next. Excuse me. Next. I'm done.
Wow, this guy.
We're talking about the closure of government, and you're talking about your TMZ stuff.
All right, so what's going on there? The journalists at NJ.com sent a plane to fly over Island Beach State Park, and they photographed Governor Christie and his family enjoying the warm weather before the governor held the news conference you just saw. The site reports, quote, when later told of the photo, Brian Murray, the governor's spokesman, said, yes, the governor was on the beach briefly today talking to his wife and his family before heading into the office.
Remember how he said he didn't get any sun? This was their response to him not getting any sun. It's actually pretty, you know, brilliant.
He did not get any sun. Murray added he had a baseball hat on. The governor has called a special session that gets underway at 10 a.m. today to try to reach that deal. Once among the most popular governors in the country, Christie has seen his popularity crater. His approval rating now about 15%. And as Quinnipiac University put it, the worst approval rating for any governor in any state surveyed by Quinnipiac University in more than 20 years.
Wow. What do you suppose that's about, chat room? He'd tell you it's a media attack. I'd tell you it's his style combined with the fact that he really is a bit of a son of a bitch. The bridge thing is probably true, and the beach thing looks bad, man. Now, what they're not telling you, I leave it to you to decide if this matters or not. What they're not telling you is that's the governor's mansion. It's right there on the beach. So that's his backyard. There was no lifeguards, there was no government services for his family. But they were just in their backyard. Does that make a difference? I ask you, sincerely. Should he have stayed off the beach just for optics? So, I mean, when I first heard these reports, they never mentioned that it was his backyard. That seems like that does make a difference to some degree about the level of egregion. But the optics are just phenomenally bad. Charum says varies from shrug to yes, it makes a difference. It's, you know, if you're gonna make such a big stink about shutting down the government, just stay off the damn beach. Because it's more than his family. It's his family and friends. I don't know. They were swimming, they were playing. It just looks so bad. Like his attitude, this I don't give a shit attitude that he has, which is what leads to these kind of decisions, like shutting down a bridge or doing this, is not going to give him any re-election points. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of the public perception, people who are supported him, they're going to see stuff like this and go, well, you know, I kind of like the guy, but he really is a jackass. It just seems like a super bad idea to me. So anyways, that's Chris Christie gets the award for the worst politics in worst political optics, I guess. I don't know. It's not actually a segment yet. I'm just kind of making it up. But he definitely gets the award for the worst optics of the week. Let's cover a little North Korea stuff before we get out of here. So one more serious story. There's actually so much stuff. I was just looking at it. There's a lot of stuff to cover in world news. So if you're a supporter at $3 or more on our Patreon, follow producer Matt's pro tip and get the BitTorrent Sync app for your phone, not for your PC. Unless you want the whole thing, but it is gigs and gigs and gigs. So I would recommend, well, producer Matt, and I'm now echoing his recommendation, get the mobile app. Scroll through our backlog on Patreon. Find the BitTorrent sync keys, add them to your mobile app, and pull down the files, just the files that you want to watch from this episode. I can't recommend at this point, unless you want to help us archive the entire catalog, which would be very, very useful for us, because you never know what could happen. I would just use the mobile app at this point. It's a huge, and we're looking for a different solution. I daydreamed about a solution with a web interface where you could download it with a torrent system and a web seed if nobody else is seeding, etc., etc. Because I think some of these clips at a certain point should just be public domain. I don't know, maybe that's something we could talk about as a Patreon milestone too, because that would be a system that has to be put in place, and it's gigs of hosting, so it's definitely an expense. But if you're at the $3 level, we have a lot more clips. And in basically every single show category, but especially in the overtime. So go watch those if you want a little extra. I totally recommend that. And also, you can catch the full live stream when YouTube doesn't censor us at patreon.com/unfilter. I try to post that up there every single week, although I can't guarantee it. So if you want to get the show every week without fail, you got to subscribe to the RSS feed. That's the only way to do it. But if you want to roll the dice, I do try to post it at patreon.com/unfilter, the full, unedited, no changes live stream. And on that live stream, we often play extra clips. But I'm going to wrap it up. We just got a couple of more clips before we get out of here. It's been a lot to cover this week. And I thought we should cover a few things that may develop into bigger stories. And I don't want to just completely ignore them. So let's do a little more. You just heard in that previous clip. Let's do a little more coverage of North Korea.
Together we are facing the threat of the reckless and brutal regime in North Korea.
Something tells me these are not Donald Trump's direct words, that these have been provided for him to read. And that's such a creepy thought. But I guess that's the way it works, everybody.
The nuclear and ballistic missile programs of that regime require a determined response. The North Korean dictatorship has no regard for the safety and security of its people, or its neighbors, and has no respect for human life. And that's been proven over and over again.
Now, I believe those are his own words.
Millions of North Korea's own citizens have suffered and starved to death. And the entire world just witnessed what the regime did to our wonderful Otto Warmbier. I thank President Moon for expressing his condolences on the travesty of Otto's death. Our thoughts and our prayers remain with this wonderful family.
So you get an idea of the kind of language that the White House is using here. Seems to me like it could be problematic, everybody. Oh, all right, so. I gotta go. Okay. All right, I know what two clips I want to go out on. You're gonna love this. Now, I gotta admit, jeez, I wish you're watching the video version for this, because this is gonna be much better in video, but I'm gonna paint a picture for you. It's the Oval Office, and they get a moment to rush in, because after that press conference there that Trump just had, they go back and they take pictures with the Japanese president. And the press gets a little obnoxious. So what you're seeing here is a bunch of people rushing in the press into the Oval Office all of a sudden. Now listen carefully, and you'll realize there's a bit of a ruckus. Ouch! Oh! Now off just in the distance, you'll see President Trump is raising his hands and kind of doing a yeesh kind of face. Yeesh! And the Japanese president's totally unaware what's going on at this moment. What has happened as somebody is trying to get a microphone way down on a telescoping pole right in front of Trump's face, because they're standing behind the couch in the Oval Office. And they're trying to get that microphone right up against Trump's face. And they're pushing. They're getting too close. And in the process, they knock over one of the historic presidential lamps. Whoa, they say. And of course, then Donald Trump begins to look very serious. And surprisingly, one of the White House staff catched, just like with cat-like reflexes, this presidential historic lamp, and boom, he catches it, puts it back up there, which then really gives them the opportunity to just really shame the press.
Hey, come on. Come on. Easy, fellas. Hey, fellas. Come on. Fellas, be easy.
At this point, like, they've already been shamed, and they look like idiots, so it's just great to really rub it in.
Fellas, easy.
Stop. It's an Oval Office. Stop it.
You guys are getting worse.
Oh, man. They just opened themselves up for that. So if you saw, you may have, if you're a big MSNBC viewer, and oh my God, anyways, if you're an MSNBC viewer, you may have seen this hot mic moment where a reporter or a cameraman, I'm not quite sure because it's just audio, in the Oval Office, it starts saying, man, that shit was nuts. Someone was assaulting me. Like, the situation in that room was seriously heated at the time. Now, the audio is going to be a little garbled here in a second because it's just an open mic, but this is being played live on MSNBC.
Hey, what's going on, man? It's good to see you. Good job. That lamp was like that. Yeah, it was like literally. Shit was nuts.
There it is. That shit was nuts.
I've never seen it like that.
I've never seen anything like that.
This guy was assaulting me on the way in. I got shot literally.
And now here's the MSNBC reporter, and he just looks like he had to eat a shit sandwich because he's like, well, what the hell do I do with that?
I'm not exactly sure what we're hearing behind the scenes. It looked like a little bit of getting roughed up in some form as the reporters were leaving the Oval Office there. Suffice to say, you saw the two presidents of South Korea and the United States, Donald Trump.
Oh, it was South Korea, not Japan. You know what? I guess they all look alike to me. Oh, I had to eat that one. I'm just kidding. I do not actually endorse the words that come out of my mouth. Thank you guys very much for being here this week. Hope you enjoyed the whole damn show. In particular, if you want to keep us around, you want to see us do a supplemental show, go over to patreon.com/unfilter, become a supporter, catch the full live stream over there. And don't forget, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be on a hiatus for 1 week while I travel to Montana. Have a great week.